makes me feel like a man.
You want every team to lose any other game? Sorry. Bailey Zappi just do another time. You know what? Wait. Time out. Are you kidding? That's what I'm gonna try to drop a mic.
Welcome to the Warner Brothas podcast. I'm Kyle, joined by my brother Keenan. Listen, it's the Thursday before the opening round of the NBA playoffs. You know what time it is. It's predictions time. It's honestly, I say this every year. I say this before the NFL season. I say this before the NFL playoffs. In some ways, it's the genesis of the Warner Brothas podcast. Keenan and I were doing predictions for seasons, for playoffs, before there was a mic in front of our face, before there was a camera in front of our face. So we were doing it just for the love of the game. So
Yes.
This is, who knows how many years we've been doing this. It's probably double-digit years plus, but probably fourth or fifth year on record.
I vividly remember doing this. I vividly remember doing this back in like 2000, probably 2010, 2011. I think that was the first one I really did. I remember because I vividly remember 2012, 2013, because going into the season, I thought Melo was winning MVP. That's the first one I really remember. And I want to say 11, 12. He did get one first place vote.
Someone was with
Got
him.
one. So he robbed LeBron of a unanimous MVP, which he honestly deserved. But you know what? That's neither here nor there. So, I mean, I got the runner-up for MVP, but yeah, that's the first one I vividly remember doing. So if you want to go from there,
Crazy.
It's been 12 years of this. Been doing it since I was 14 years old.
Wait.
It is crazy.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. 11, 12. Yeah, for sure. So, listen, we recorded Monday. We talked about the play-in games. I talked about how much I dislike the play-in games, especially when you look at the Eastern Conference, where the Heat and Sixers themselves are, it was 8 and 10 games respectively ahead of the Hawks and Bulls. The Hawks and Bulls have no business being in the playoffs, let alone fighting for a chance to be in the playoffs. I mean, let me say this. The Bulls deserve to be in the playoffs. The Bulls are a good team. They just didn't do it over the course of 82 games, which is why we have an 82-game season. And
They didn't deserve
for
to
sure
be in the playoffs.
For sure.
Because they
For sure.
didn't have the record to be in the playoffs. So.
I think they're a better team.
No,
than
but
like
I know what you're
Atlanta.
saying. They're
Like,
they're
I
a
think
lower level playoff
they're
caliber
a step
team.
below Miami.
Yes.
Obviously, and whoever else. But if I didn't need any more proof or any more reason, the Pelicans as well, who already earned their keep. A little different situation in the West. They're within 1 or 2 games of the 10 seed, whatever. Also within 1 or 2 games of probably the 4 and the 5 too. And the 6. But the Pelicans, who technically would have earned their keep, was this pre-2021, pre-2020. They lose a player. They lose their best player in Zion. In a game that, again, in my opinion, should not matter. Should have already been in there. The Heat, in the same exact situation, lose their best player on game 83. Yep. Which, by the way, I also found out last night. Maybe I'd heard this, maybe I don't. But Kobe White scores his career high. But in the record books on Basketball Reference doesn't count. What the fuck is the point of all this? Obviously, it's TV ratings, but if you're the Heat, if you're the Pelicans, of course, who's to say they wouldn't have got injured on opening weekend on Saturday or Sunday? But you have to be upset that, hey, we literally did what needed to be done over the course of 82 games to get into the playoffs. We were a top 8 seed, and we each lose our best players for at least a couple weeks. For at least a couple weeks. Now, if we advance, we really don't have a chance in the first round. I'm upset.
I'm sure you. I mean, not that you hope for this at all, but I'm sure you feel more confident if the Heat were to win going into a 1-8 with a hampered Jimmy Butler compared to a very healthy Jimmy Butler ready to go, which Terry Rozier probably would have been healthy for game 1 anyway too. Not that you're not concerned, because the Heat are obviously still a very tough out, but like as a Boston fan, without Jimmy Butler,
it's even worse. It's even worse than that, because for him and Zion both, it just looks like they'll be out the first round. I think there were people who thought maybe Jimmy could still play tomorrow, but I think he got officially ruled out. So I mean,
No, he's already ruled out for it. So
someone like Jimmy
hero.
Butler, you would expect maybe like if the Heat were to pull out a game or two early on, which I don't think is going to happen, but if they were to pull out a game, that maybe okay, Jimmy Butler comes back for a game 5 or something like that. Just the type of player he is, but overall, I mean, I really, had the Heat won and had the Heat been at full strength, maybe it would have been a deep series. They're really tough to evaluate just how they handle the regular season anyway. And Jimmy Butler, honestly, like he just looks, I want to say like he's taking a step back, but he does seem less aggressive at times. So you just never really know what that was going to be anyway. Had they won or had they matched up with the Celtics, or even if they would have got the Knicks, I actually really would have liked the Heat's chances against the Knicks had he been back. But
to be quite honest with you, I mean, this is not, now it's not giving anything away. If the Heat win that game with a healthy Jimmy Butler, I think I might have them going to the conference finals.
It's possible. I mean, that's why that game was so big. That's why that game was so big, and that's why you got to be kicking yourself if you're a Heat fan. Because, I mean, whether you're the six, anybody who's in that 2-7 spot's really got to feel good about their chances with a diminished Giannis that you're playing, or maybe a Pacers team that's not ready that you're playing in the second round that you're ultimately probably matching up with. So,
yeah,
again, on top of, I mean, they really do got to do something, Keenan. If you're in the West and you have that sort of situation where 10 through 7, they're all within a game, or they're all within 3 to 5 games, sure, have a play-in. But a situation in the East where the Hawks and Bulls have zero business even being in a play-in, let alone the playoffs, a play-in, just let the Sixers and Heat through and match up, 7-2, 8-1, like the old days. I really don't understand it. I think it's the dumbest thing. Adam Silver does a lot right, but man, there's some things like there's just no need for that. Nobody was asking. Do you remember any conversations prior to 2020 about a play-in tournament? Like ever on TV, online, on podcasts? Never in any basketball circle had it ever been brought up. I'd heard of an in-season tournament like what we got now. That had been brought up by multiple people, but I'd never in my life heard of a play-in tournament NCAA style. It's ridiculous. And I feel bad for both teams, and especially Zion, because, man, Zion was hooping and putting the fear of God in the Lakers, which turns out if you're the Lakers, you might have welcomed Zion beating y'all, and you would have been matched up with the Kings at the end of the day. It just sucks because, we've talked to.
They haven't beaten them this year, though.
Kings. No, they haven't. But I mean, in that one game situation, I definitely would have took the Lakers over the Kings in that.
It's different. I would, without Monk, without Kevin Huerter, that would have been in LA too. Yeah, no, I would have absolutely favored the Lakers, and I can't see LeBron losing back-to-back elimination games with the way he's playing, the way Anthony Davis is playing. D'Angelo Russell has found his stride since the trade rumors have gone. That team's playing as well as they can play. So if they're going to play the Nuggets, which they are, this is the best chance for me, in my personal opinion, of what they're going to be to beat them. Will they beat them, in my opinion? We'll see in a moment.
No, lots of drama from these playoff games. You get a thriller last night with Philly and Miami. Like I said, a thriller with the Pelicans and Lakers. A lot of interesting things going on there. As this game's going on, as Zion's killing it right before his injury, I'm thinking to myself, damn, even if the Lakers pull this out and the Pelicans, get one more crack at it, at that time I had thought, like you said, with Monk being out, with Kevin Huerter being out, I thought, hey, good spot for the Warriors, even on the road. I'm going to roll with the Warriors tonight, And I'm thinking, man, if the Warriors get through, it would be very hard for them to stop Zion. Like, they would have a load on their hands with Zion and the Pelicans, because the Pelicans have been on a roll really since the break. Really half the season, I would say, maybe January on, but especially since the break have they been one of the better teams in the Western Conference. And then lo and behold, the Warriors just throw up all over themselves. They just didn't have it. Some sort of era is over. I want to ask you, because you are I don't know what you are. If you're a quasi Warriors fan, you're a big Steph supporter, you're a follower of the dynasty, I guess we could say. What are your thoughts on the game the other night, and and whatever what it was that we saw. Because I have my own thoughts on it, but I want to hear from you.
So going in, watching the game early, I was like, the Kings were going to throw the first punch. It made sense. Also, just want to say, hit on a $10 to win 160 on a Draymond Green first 3-pointer made in the game. Because I felt what happens in those games. Yeah, what happens in those games is there'll be either a screen or off ball. There'll be a drive. There'll be penetration, a kick out to Draymond, and he'll take a 3 early. He's been making early 3s this year, so I was like, you know what? I'm going with it. Got it. Just wanted to say that was big for me. But regardless, moving on from that, I was watching the game. I was like, the Kings are going to throw their first punch. This is the team. The last time they played on that court in a meaningful game, Steph dropped 50 on him, light the beam, went out of there. So obviously they were going to be hyped for this game, of course. So early on, the ball pressure was great. Keegan Murray was lighting it up. And the Warriors withstood all of that. Jonathan Kuminga got in a run in the second quarter. They went into the half, turning the ball over more, not getting offensive rebounds. Curry only had 5 points, down 4. And I was like, the Warriors are going to manage to pull this one out. Then third quarter goes along. Steph starts getting going. You're like, okay, cool. He's getting some shots up at the basket. He had to work entirely too hard. I mean, the great on the Kings defense, but they also didn't do a great job of
running their offense,
trying to free Steph. Clay was, yeah, they didn't do a great job running their offense. That's the best way to say it. They didn't do a great job of running their offense. They got sped up. Wiggins, they were trying to go a little bit too one-on-one because that's not what they do. Wiggins was not hitting. Klay Thompson was claymation. He did nothing. Draymond Green obviously is not an offensive threat. Kuminga played well when he was in. Trace Jackson-Davis was just basically played off of the floor early. They just got somehow outclassed. They just got really outclassed in the second half. Steve Kerr's substitutions baffled me, as we were talking about on the last pod. I'm not sure if that part got clipped off or not, because I know there was a little bit of technical difficulties with uploading all of it, but Steve Kerr's substitution pattern can be a little wonky. Steph turned the ball over 6 times. He played the best game for them, and he played a C-level game. You're not going to win that way. So kudos to the Kings, though. Like they came out, they played very, very aggressive basketball. They played with a point to prove, and they played great. And
yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to add about the game itself, other than, like you said, they were getting out rebounded in the first half. They were turning the ball over. They weren't playing well in the first half, and they went in down 4 or 6 points. And you're like, okay, but also. And by the way, without Monk and Herter is the big thing here. If this was the Kings at their full roster, I think I would have picked the Kings outright. Just from what I've seen from the Warriors the last few weeks, really since the break when they've had, their whole roster together. It's just been entirely too inconsistent. I came on here and said, like, look, they can't beat any good teams in crunch time. Like, it just seems like they can get to the mountaintop, but they never actually get over the mountaintop. They removed Jordan Poole from this team. They removed what they thought was, the bad vibes on this team, I guess. And they still, you saw, like, even, if they got down 8 or if they got down 10 points against the Kings, that's usually when your core of your team is supposed to just fight through, just battle through. Like, oh, we've been here a million times. There's none of that. They had no camaraderie, which is exactly what they had last year, was no camaraderie. They did not know how to battle back against the Lakers last year, and they still did not know how to battle back this year, which was extremely interesting to me, which is why I think you get Kerr, where he doesn't really know what rotations to go to, because it doesn't seem like there's 3 to 4 other guys that can play next to Steph or next to Steph and Draymond when they're in. And if you got Clay who's not playing well, it makes things even harder when you don't really have another scorer to go to. I left this game, though, because I'm thinking, everyone's saying it's the end, which it very well might be. But if it is, I think only Clay's gone. right? Because
Yeah.
Clay's the only.
Draymond has 3 more years on his contract.
Well, not only
Draymond's
not only that, they had a million chances, or couple chances this year, and really the last 2 years started with a Jordan Poole punch to get rid of him as a distraction. Obviously, Curry wants Draymond to stick around, right? I personally think if push came to shove, unless like things really get contentious, or I think Clay's going to get offered a lot of money on the open market, but Clay's an 8th man at this point. Like I've been saying it for years, like he'll never be the same after those 2 injuries, right? Like it's gonna take a while. Like it's just never gonna be consistent, and at times it's looked even uglier than that. See, the other night with 0 points on 0 of 12. He's an 8th man. He's
0 of 10, 0 of 6 from 3.
Yeah. He's not even a 6th man at this point, being that inconsistent. He can't guard consistently. There's some nights where you can get good defense out of him, but he's an 8th man.
He's a little bit better. He's a touch better Duncan Robinson. He's roughly
Right.
Duncan Robinson
Right.
at this point in his career.
Right. And honestly, like, never mind. We can talk about that later. I was going to say, maybe with a full summer of it, maybe Clay could acclimate himself to being an 8th man, and maybe he's more productive. Because I really do think, because they say Orlando's going to go after him, I think that'd be a perfect spot for him. Young team where all you got to worry about is shooting threes. Like that's perfect for him. But I was really thinking about it because I've been through this with like KG and Pierce as a Celtics fan, and like Danny Ainge got rid of them when they were no longer championship focal points, right? Still could be an addition to a championship team, but not the focal points, right? And I'm looking at the Warriors, and Steph could still, of course, be a number 1, at the worst, a number 2 on a team. I think he's taken a little bit of a step back, but not like a crazy step back. You know what I mean? Not like a Dame Lillard type step back that we've seen from last year to this year.
He came into the league to me, or came into the year to me, in definitively in the top 5. He left. He's going to leave this year, going into next year, definitively in the top 10.
Right. I agree with that. And
so, like, he's still a top 10 player in the game, but like, as I could make a case that like him and Luka are on the same level. Like he could be. No, Luka's better. Like Luka's just better. Like he's taken enough of a step back to where if you're going to have him in the top 10, he's towards the 6 to 9 range rather than the 3 to 5, 6.
Right. So, and I think I'd mentioned on here a couple weeks ago, Draymond had said something about how he's only got 2 or 3 years left to play. And I'm like, that's weird because he looks great. Like, I think he even looks better than maybe 2 seasons ago. Like their championship year, I think he looks better than.
He looks better than his championship year for sure.
He seems to be just like lighter on his feet, like got some hops back. Not that he had like explosive hops, but he just seems like a little more athletic than 2 years ago, a little more spring in his step. Obviously more willing to shoot the 3. But he can't be your number 2 guy. He
shot it much better this year.
Sure. And he'd only try like, 1 or 2 threes a game, but was hitting them. And I don't think he can be your number 2, which he was their number 2 this year. He's got to be your number 3 or 4 if you're going to be a championship team. That being said, you still got guys like Kuminga and Wiggins, Chris Paul. All those guys have some sort of value across the league. So if you could exchange those level of players and get some sort of impact player back, I don't know if that's possible. Maybe you could still have that big 3 intact and have a second run at it like the Spurs. I don't think that's going to be easy. I think that's why Bob Myers got out of there. He didn't want to make these tough decisions. Again, Steph and Draymond are for sure going to be back. I mean, yeah, they still could trade Draymond, but you would absolutely need Steph's blessing. I think he's been there this long because of Steph. And Clay would be your wild card. And honestly, if he left, would they really be missing him? No, they won't. As sad as it is to say, they would not be missing him. But I don't think if you replace Clay with whoever, name a 2 guard, name a wing off the bench, it doesn't really matter if you're still relying on Wiggins and Kuminga that much and Moody, because the young guys just have not worked out the way they thought. They have not acclimated themselves the way they thought. The Wiseman draft sent them back. These picks have just sent them back. So I'm very interested to see how it goes. I actually do think, like, if you coming out of that game, like I said, thinking about all this, thinking about where the Celtics were in 2012 or whatever it was when they traded Pierce and KG, that's just not where the Warriors are. And they still have talent. They're obviously not going to get rid of Steph. That's one way you could reboot, trade Steph and get a huge haul back. They're obviously never going to do that. And again, Draymond would have been out of here the last 2 years if they were really going to trade him. So, I mean, my thing would be to trade the core, see what that value is. Someone will take a lot of that core back. Who knows? It's very and Kerr's extension runs through 2026, which is very telling to me. That matches up with the Draymond timeline as well. So I'm really interested to see what these next 2 seasons look like, what their plan is. Like, is Steph planning on retiring after 2026? This and that. So I would not be surprised to see Clay back. I would not be surprised, obviously, to see the big 3 intact. Kerr's going to be there. I don't think the core would be the same. And whether that would mean 2025 is a full rebuild and then, 2026 you're going for it, I don't know. But I'm very interested to see what their offseason looks like in a offseason that could have some impact free agents. It could. So
I think that I would actually be shocked if Clay's back just because of how Joe Lacob's been talking about really wanting to stay under the tax, and with the money that Draymond and Steph already have. If they give Clay anything more than like $5 million a year, he can't. They will be completely, at least in the. They'll definitely be over the tax. So I don't know. I don't think they'd be over the second apron, depending on what his contract is. But they definitely would be over in the luxury tax. So it really just depends on that and how much Clay is willing to take a discount. I actually think it'd be better for Clay not to be on the team, because I think Clay is one of the best players in Warriors history. He is part of a Warriors dynasty. He's been, obviously, argue anywhere from the second to fourth best player on that team within a given time, depending on where you rank him between him, Durant, the Durant years, Draymond, him, whatever. But it gets to a point where, because of that, you almost grandfather him in minutes. Like, I feel like if Klay Thompson was Duncan Robinson, I'll use since I think he's kind of close, and he was that cold early on, I don't think he would have played in the second half. Like a level of player that Clay is now. But because of the fact that Clay is Clay, and they're like, well, he could get hot. And if he does, we could kind of. So you kind of have him in longer, and his run extends a little bit longer than need be. And I think that can kind of lose him games. And then he wants it so bad that he will hunt for his shot, and then he will shoot. So he's just going to continue to shoot. And, I mean, you're supposed to. You're open, you've got to shoot him, but sometimes he'll end up throwing up dumb shots because of it, because he just wants to will the ball in to try to get himself going. So I actually think it might be better for the Warriors moving forward to not have Clay. It will be interesting because really the Draymond, Steph, and Steve Kerr timelines all match up. So I think Steve Kerr's done probably in 2026. I think Draymond's done. I don't know if Steph's done then. I'm not sure if Steph has the definitive like second to third best player on a championship team, depending on if he wants to go somewhere. I think he does want to retire a Warrior, and if that's the case, I think it just really depends on what the team has at that juncture. We'll see if they can get. They have been always aggressive in free agency, aggressive with trade, so we'll see moving forward what they can get. Wiggins was not what he was in their championship run, so they're going to probably have to look on moving him. Kuminga had a great second half to the season. They have Jackson Davis. They have Podziemski. Moses Moody was a nice role player, but like as obviously for what that draft was like made out to be, was like, oh, this is the next wave of stars. It has not lived up to that. Kuminga is starting to live up to the fact that he can definitely be a quality starter in the league, but then they found people in the gap. So if they can find themselves a Paul George level kind of guy within the offseason, depending on who they can get, interestingly enough, if they can make a move for someone like that, then maybe they could retool with insert players, Steph and Draymond. But obviously that's not an easy thing to do. The entire roster is going to look different, but that's what I think on the Warriors front. We'll definitely talk more about them coming forward, obviously, when the season's over.
I do want to say
we've got awards. Unless you have something else to say. Sorry, you go on. And then we got awards
just
predictions.
On the Clay
everything.
side of things, the only teams I could see Clay going to would be the Lakers, who aren't really going to be having cap room.
Yep.
Or the Magic. I didn't realize the Magic were an option, but they said they're going to be pursuing them heavy. Which makes sense. Like I said, young team who needs shooting. We'll talk about that in the upcoming playoff predictions. But that's really I can't see him going to a cold weather city. He's always been a Cali kid. He's always been on the West Coast. So I can't. He's always been linked to the Lakers anyway. So really, those are the only two teams I could realistically see him go to. If there was a way for a Lakers trade, or like I said, Orlando. But ultimately, I think just how Clay is, I could see him just kind of sucking it up and being like, all right, I'll be an 8th or 9th man, which is a huge bitter pill to swallow. But
if he does, then for sure. I just don't. He won't get paid. He's not going to get paid
True.
by the Warriors.
I think
like
he knows
wants
that.
to.
He's got it. He's got to know
that's
that.
really
because he just went out there and scored a whole 0 points. So he's got to know that to some degree.
He was as useful as you and I were.
But he'll definitely get a bag from Orlando. Someone's going to overpay him or pay him what they think's justified. But very interesting. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that, as well as the USA team. Very interesting USA team that we got going on here. But
finally, Steph is going to play with. I get to see Steph and LeBron in meaningful minutes together on the same floor.
Who knows? Maybe you'll see LeBron on the Warriors next year, for all we know. So I could see that happening within the next 2 or 3 years, maybe even this offseason. But I don't know if the Warriors probably wouldn't have the cap.
All right,
but this US
no, but they try to make it work. They would make it work.
This USA team is very interesting with Kawhi. I was not expecting Kawhi to get the last spot. They've got a few young guys, but mostly some vets, which if you are a fan of like the Denver Nuggets or the Minnesota Timberwolves or the Suns, well, not really the Suns because Durant's on it too, but if you're a younger team that's on the rise, you got to feel good about LeBron, KD, Kawhi. Who else? Who else is on there? Anthony Davis. You got to feel good about all them guys putting the extra miles on. Steph. All of them putting the extra miles on this summer. And because I don't think we've seen this old of a roster probably since the Dream Team, where a lot of those guys were in their prime, but you still had Bird and Magic on it. So I don't know. This might be even older than the Dream Team, really, now that I'm thinking about it. So it's a weird team. It's a weird team.
Definitely. I love it, but it is old. It's older, but I love it. I really do. Do you want to go predictions first? Or not predictions, sorry. Do you want to go awards first?
Let's give our awards. Let's
run
give our awards. Yeah,
real quick?
We'll start wherever. I want to say for the viewers, for the listeners, this is mine and Keenan's MVP, Coach of the Year, et cetera, not who we think is necessarily going to win, who is our personal MVP, Coach of the Year, Sixth Man of the Year, et cetera. So without further ado, Keenan, what's the first award?
First award we're going to do is Most Improved.
All right, let's hear it. I'm interested to hear who you pick.
My Most Improved, actually, is I think who's going to win it, but I actually believe that wholeheartedly. I do have Tyrese Maxey as my Most Improved. I think, obviously, I understand it's Most Improved is always difficult because sometimes it's really the guy who goes from 26 or 22 minutes to 32 minutes who gets it. Maxey had pretty much the same minute count, but obviously with Harden not being there, he became the primary ball handler. Obviously without Embiid there, he became the number one on the roster, so his role kind of shifted multiple times throughout the season. But I think he did a lot for that roster. He really showed that he is a better playmaker than you would have expected, plus also, obviously we know he can put the ball in the basket. I believe he had 51 like 2 weeks ago-ish, roughly. So I think Tyrese Maxey has been one of the many people who could be deserving of this because there's a lot of people every year, but Tyrese Maxey for me is the guy who's winning Most Improved.
Yeah, Maxey's going to win it for sure. I don't think he should because I don't think he is Most Improved. I think everything, like I get what you say and I get what the voters are going to see, blah, blah, blah. But to me, he just increases minutes. Everything he's doing is what he did last year. With like you said, an increased opportunity. They got rid of James Harden, slide Tyrese Maxey into that number 2 spot, and he does what he does. I don't think any Sixers fan was surprised by what he did this year. He really did what he did the last couple years, just again with increased opportunity. Mm-hmm. So my Most Improved.
If you don't say this person, sorry to interrupt, but if you don't say this person, I've got another one for a runner-up real quick that I don't feel like needs mentioned, but I think you might go this route.
Sure, I might surprise you, but I think this player improved. Obviously, it's Most Improved. I obviously think this player upped his game.
I think this
But
player took a
this
step
player-
forward.
This player, I mean, this happens a lot. This player, I disliked. He was probably my most disliked player in the league. And he turned himself into something this year I was not expecting, and continued to grow and continued to just become an important part of a team that has championship aspirations, and that's Grayson Allen. Grayson Allen improved his game immensely. He was someone that
my
Bucks
guy.
fans couldn't wait to get rid of. He was someone that was a, rotation player you could probably count on, but couldn't really count on at the same time. It was kind of trick or treat with Grayson Allen, but you at least always knew he was going to play hard. Now I believe he led the league in 3-point shooting. On top of his defense, that was already pretty good. He toned down all the antics. He toned down the dirty play. Draymond had an uptick in dirty play. Grayson Allen had a downtick in dirty play. But no, overall, Grayson Allen, he's going to be someone, if you see the Suns in the conference finals this year, Grayson Allen's going to be in their crunch time 5. And if not, he's going to be getting important fourth quarter minutes, leading into their crunch time 5. Like, either way, he's going to be playing 32 minutes a game in the playoffs for the Suns and delivering. At least what we saw this regular season. Of course he could play bad, whatever. But I mean, he's been miles better than I ever thought. I never thought he would be. And I think they blessed him with an extension the other day on top of that, like right on game 82.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was not expecting this much, important Grayson Allen minutes for the Phoenix Suns this year. I thought he would have been, 6th, 7th, 8th man, hitting some threes, playing some defense, 25 minutes a game, maybe here and there. But
He's their 4th most important player for sure.
And shooting didn't he shoot like 48? Like something ridiculous. Maybe not 48, but 44 and up.
Yeah, he's shooting about like 48% from
Ridiculous.
3.
So he would be my most improved. That's someone whose role changed, but because he improved so much. I mean, let me look and see if his minutes drastically changed at all.
He went from 27 minutes last year to 33 minutes this year.
6.
Went from 10.4 points to 13.5. Shot went from 44% to almost 50%, 49.9. Up to 3-point percentage from 40 to 46. Then 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal, which are pretty much identical to what he had the year prior. So he upped his efficiency drastically in a situation where a lot more was called on him, and he definitely answered that and then some. So I don't.
And if I could give Cole most improved, Keenan, I would also give it to Mr. 40 points last night, career high that does not count himself, Kobe White. But I also feel like he falls under, what I described as gets an increased opportunity because Zach LaVine went out. But also we didn't see this in the last couple of years from him. He became not only a focal point, but a consistent, reliable option for the Chicago Bulls. And as we saw last night, just took over the game. So he would be, like, honestly, I would have those two as my most improved. And I do want to say this, Keenan. We've talked about this before. I think you've even mentioned it on the show. But 2016, when Steph had his, like, end-all, be-all season, his unanimous MVP season, I truly, wholeheartedly believe he should have won most improved as well. His minutes did not change. Change, and he went up, 7 points per game? And the team, obviously, we know what the team did. Team went up to 73 wins. I mean, he had as much of an argument as anybody that year for most improved. So, I would like to see them.
He was my most
improved. And then, Keenan,
player.
I'll say this just to I have a lot of gripes about the NBA. I don't want to take up too much time here because I know, we're under a shot clock here. But the 1 year, if at all, they could have gave it to anybody who had an increased role and just exploded, the Jeremy Lin year. Like, if there was anybody who, like, they just love giving it to the guy who's got an increased opportunity. They did not give it to Jeremy Lin the year he just exploded on the scene. Linsanity happens. He has all these insane games. No, didn't give it to him that year. That's not the – they'd want to give it to the player that increased his opportunity and made the most of it that year. No, not that year. That's not the one. But so you just never know with most improved. But it's going to be Maxey, but those would be my two, Grayson Allen and Kobe White. And you said you had –
I'd have Jalen Brunson in the Steph Curry category. I think that Jalen Brunson I know, like, if you go across the board –
That's
and
great.
go across the board,
That's
like
great.
his field goal percentage is roughly the same, 3-point percentage the same, rebounds, assists,
great.
but the points went up from 24 to 29, No one last year was talking about Jalen Brunson possibly being a top 10 player. This year, he's absolutely within that conversation of being a top 10 player, bordering around there. He's better than Damian Lillard. Like he's around, like he's up in that upper echelon point guard group. I think that Jalen Brunson to me would be my runner up, and maybe even I would be fine if he won it, because I think that's the type of guy who really same role, same player, took it to another level and brought that Knicks team to another level, the same way we were just talking about Steph. So Jalen Brunson was the second guy I wanted to mention.
Yeah, I would like to see more of that from Most Improved. I would love if Brunson won, but again, Maxi's almost certainly gonna win it, but which it's not necessarily not deserving, but I just think you just remove James Harden. It's simple as that.
Yeah.
But what's our next category?
Clutch player.
Oh my God. You go first, because I actually did not have anybody for this. I know I said before the year that I would choose Luka. That was my prediction. Yep. And I can go ahead.
I'm 50-50 right now. I'm going to lean Steph, but DeMar DeRozan's right there deserving just as much. Like both
10 seed? A 10 seed?
What? No, when you clutch player is like what you did in crunch time this year. DeMar DeRozan's probably as the favorite to win it right now. But like, I mean, depends on what you think.
Because he's like leading in crunch time.
He's leading
scoring,
in crunch time scoring. Like I think Curry lead is like total. I think I almost said Draymond. DeMar is, I think, points per like game. In that, I think Curry leads in total points. His like his efficiency is number one and all of that. If you're going off of like a top seed and everything, then that would be different. But that's just the two players that I think I would have there for what they've done this season. But I mean, it depends on how you feel clutch player is supposed to be. It's a little different. Like I'm thinking Curry just because I'm thinking a lot of the big shots that he's hit, and he had huge fourth quarters, big spots that he's made a bunch of these plays, and they've played in more close games than really anyone, and he's shown up in most, if not all, really most of them.
That's a very glass half full way of looking at it. And as far as Steph, I mean, I knew DeRozan was leading in crunch time scoring, which I think is like the last 4 minutes.
I think it's even fourth quarter scoring. And I believe I can check real quick though, but go on.
I mean, I watched quite a bit of Warriors games, especially the second half. It seemed like every time I caught them against a contender or someone who was like, you know, in their boat, it seemed like they always lost that game. I always found myself wanting more from Steph. I can't think of many huge shots Steph made this year.
Phoenix, LA, Thunder early on.
Yeah, I mean, the one that comes to mind is that Thunder floater he had early on.
The Phoenix shot from 29 to win that game. Obviously, LeBron had the foul shot, but he had the three to end that in double overtime. I mean, I can go on, but like I'm just saying, he's had a lot of very big shots in quarters in the fourth. But I mean, I think he'll be runner up in the award. I think DeRozan will probably win it.
Yeah, this is a weird award. I mean, to me, the first people that would come to mind is someone like Luka or Jokic, who were not only playing in these big moments, but coming through in these big moments. You know what I mean? So for DeRozan and Steph to be your front runners, each is 9 and 10 seeds, that's a little funky to me. I think that's really like, that sounds like an oxymoron. They're the most clutch players, but they're also on the outside looking into the playoffs, technically, if you're, again, going by the old rules. So I don't know. That's interesting to me. I guess, like, if you had to make me choose, I guess just pick Jokic, but I really would not have a pick for this. I really, like I said, I saw that DeRozan had the most crunch time scoring, and I was like, okay, like, that's cool. Like, yeah, he's got the most fourth quarter points, but like, I mean, I didn't watch a ton. Well, I will say the Bulls, their record is good in one-score games. I think they played the most one-score games or the most crunch time games, something like that. And there's something like 27 and 17. So, you know, I guess that would give credence to DeMar DeRozan. But I am abstaining from this pick because I really there was no one who jumped off the page to me. No one who jumped out of my mind to me as the most clutch. Really, besides Luka, and I felt that was a little phony because I picked him before the year, and it just seemed like he was in a lot of big spots and pulled stuff out. So DeMar was your pick. DeMar and Steph. Was it Cole or was
Demar's who I'm leaning, but those two would be 1 and 2. I think they actually will probably finish 1 and 2 because I'm going by legitimately what the award is. But I do get what you're saying is like they might have been the best players late in games, but they also didn't always win a lot of some of these games too. So like I get what you're saying. I don't think you're wrong on anything you're saying. Just going by what the award is. Just
what does the actual award say? What's the actual?
Okay, I'm gonna look this up, but we're going to move on to Coach of the Year. Who is your Coach of the Year?
Hold on, I want to hear this first. 'Cause I really do. Like, I'm very curious.
It's named after Jerry West.
Stipulations.
I don't see anything like explaining the award at the moment, so just give me a second.
So there's no actual criteria.
There probably is. I'm just not seeing it at the moment.
De'Aaron Fox won it last year for context.
NBA clutch players and an honor given to the national NBA player who best comes through in his first teammates in the clutch in the regular season. Basically, best comes through, which would be averaging the most points, making the as I say, getting in that kind of set, like who on that team always is showing up in the clutch and in those moments and things like that. So,
if that's the letter of the law, so to speak, for me, then that would be Jokic. I think Jokic comes through for his team, whether it's scoring, whether it's setting up his teammates, whether it's getting the best looks for his guys. So Jokic, I guess, would be my pick for that.
All right, Coach of the Year.
Joe Mazzulla. 64 wins for the Celtics. Haven't played a meaningful game probably in over a month. They wrapped up the East a long-ass time ago. You just do not see that very often. In any other year, I would pick Mark Dagno. Is that how you say his name for the Thunder?
Mark Dagno,
Dagno. He would be the stereotypical pick for Coach of the Year. You know, taking a young Thunder team who did not make the playoffs last year to a 1 seed, you can't argue with that. And in fact, if I could give coaches of the year, if the NBA did that, I think it would be Mazzulla and Dagno. Even if you did Eastern Conference, Western Conference, if you did it that type of way. So I think Dagno is, more than equipped, more than qualified to win the award. Any other year would win the award for me, but Joe Mazzulla winning 64 games and just being so far ahead of the East, you just don't see that type of dominance this day and age. Not that far ahead, at least. Usually you'll see maybe 5 games ahead, and you got the 1 seed in hand. But to not have played a meaningful game really since mid-March, maybe even earlier than that, I think that's a lot. That's a testament, especially to a coach who I didn't think did that great of a job last year. Granted, he was the definition of thrown into the fire last year with the Ime Udoka firing. And, he was literally learning on the job. So for him to turn, which is probably the most talented roster in the NBA, the Celtics, but 64 games, that's tough to do. That's tough to do in any event of the NBA. So Joe Mazzulla would be my Coach of the Year.
So I'm kind of like you, but I lean to the other side, but I am fine with it. I'd rather than Rico. I had Mark Dagno as mine. I think that them acquiring the 1 seed as a Thunder team that I know we thought Camden was thinking a little high of them when we were talking to them as about the 3 or 2 seed. And
he was spot on.
And he was spot. I mean, they were the 1 seed. He was more spot on than really you heard most people. So I would lean there just because they do have a lot of young talent, and putting that young talent together and making that better than the Nuggets, better than the Timberwolves. Obviously, they have the same record as the Nuggets, but you won the tiebreakers for a reason. So I lean there. But again, Mazzulla wins it, more than deserving. 64 games is a very, very good season. It's rarefied air to get to that 64.
It's a great season.
I was going to say, to get to that 64 win season. I mean, it happens obviously, but it's not a common thing, or else we would see it all the time. So I don't disagree with you. I have Mark Dagno, but I mean, either way, I'm fine with those two. One of those two.
curious if the Thunder would have lost their last game and they're a 2 or 3 seed. Does that change your pick? Do you still pick Dagno?
I do, because I think I would have Missoula like an inch ahead of him, but I think it'd still be there. But instead of it being like 1A Dagno, 1B Missoula, it would have been the other way around. I think getting the 1 seed kind of firmly cements. It'd been like if Westbrook was like 31-10 and then like 9.8, rather than him having 31-10 and 10. Because he didn't officially average a triple-double. Like, it just changes it just a hair. Not that it doesn't make the season great, but, like, you didn't actually average a triple-double. Like, that kind of thing. Like, he got the 1 seed. Even though the records are close, like, he got the 1 seed to me. So I think it matters just like a hair. Not like it's the end-all, be-all. Like, he goes now down to 4 if he doesn't get it.
I would also show some love for Ime in Houston. They far exceeded my expectations.
Yep.
I thought he did a great coaching job over there in Houston. So
for sure,
he would also be on my list.
Shout out to Timberwolves. I mean, there's a lot of teams that definitely deserve that. So we're gonna move on to 6th man of the year. I'll go first on this one. I think this is fine. Hold on, I just need to see. Mine's Malik Monk. The only thing is I don't know if he played enough games. He did. Malik Monk.
I think he did.
I know his injury came late. I just didn't know if he missed much time earlier on to see if he didn't hit it or not, but he did hit the qualification, so he is mine. Malik Monk is I know there's a couple other people as well that could definitely be in that, but I think the spark that Malik Monk gives for that roster off the bench is the reason why I don't think they'll really do anything in the playoffs this year, because they're missing a guy who can close. They're missing a guy who can really take the ball out of De'Aaron Fox's hands when he needs to. So Malik Monk is my 6th man of the year.
I'm glad you said, let me check and see if he qualifies via games, because I don't know if you saw this, but DiVincenzo, I thought it was just 65 games, but DiVincenzo apparently missed the 6th man qualification by seconds.
Oh?
By like a total of like 11 seconds or 9 seconds, which I did not understand. I never
that
really
is
got the full
that is
breakdown
insane.
of it,
That's insane.
so I don't know how that works.
I thought it was just 65 games, but that's insane.
I know you have to play a certain amount of games or a certain amount of minutes for it to qualify, like 20 minutes in one game. So that must be it. But you'd figure that would go more so for like a starter.
Yeah.
6 man, I wouldn't think you'd really need that much qualification. If you played 19 minutes and however many seconds, that seems a little ridiculous. But
yeah,
I agree with you. My pick would be Malik Monk as well. I would also show some love to Naz Reid. Naz Reid held it down.
Yeah, that was the other one for me
this year. Big Jelly. He had a great season, so I'd be cool with either one of them winning. I think their stats are pretty comparable. I think Naz Reid averaged something like 13 points a game. Malik Monk averaged 15. But Malik Monk carrying the torch of his spirit animal, J.R. Smith. They're somewhat akin to me. They're very similar to me. So he's carrying the throne there. One of many more to come, possibly. He could be like Jamal Crawford, Lou Williams, and win it a couple times. So I would not be surprised to see that at all. So shouts to Malik Monk.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say I think Naz Reid's leading right now, but I think Malik Monk's definitely got himself a case. Rookie of the year. I'll let you talk about him, but we all both have the same guy, so you talk about him.
It's Wemby. I'll just say it again. I'll just regurgitate what the hell I've been saying the last few weeks. Get him a couple teammates next year, and we're gonna see Wemby at least in the play-in.
Trae Young.
Trae Young, yeah, exactly. Get him some Trae Young. Get him. And supposedly I saw somewhere last night that the Spurs don't want to make any moves. They just want to keep building young, see how the next couple drafts go, and go from there. And honestly, the way Wemby's playing, it might not matter, but he could be in the playoffs next year, and I want to say get to the second round himself, but lead. He could. If
Wemby won MVP next year, would it shock you?
Yeah, it would. Yes, it would shock
me.
Who the fuck's on his team?
It would shock me. Really would.
It'd
shock me because that means how good the team was, rather. But
no, he's good enough.
His
to win
individual
an MVP
status,
now, which is insane to say. He's good enough to be. He's a 15 top 10 player.
Yeah, that's more.
That's kind of. I remember listening to this interview with I think Brian Windhorst because he had interviewed Wemby, or he done a large profile on Wemby, like spent a couple weeks with him, I believe. And he was saying like people in Wemby's circle, or that he was saying himself, just like from the time he'd spent with him, that like, you know, to temper expectations a little bit, at least in the first season, like it might not be crazy. And I think I'd even said maybe on our preseason podcast, like Wemby's so damn tall and just so damn like he can already just hit a spot up three, like stuff like that. I didn't see any way he couldn't just fall into 20, like literally just off him being so tall and just being an effective offensive player already. And yeah, he got his 20. I think he might have got to 21 or 22, but he is a spectacular player. I can't believe how good he is already. I really can't. The league seems easy for him already. He has endless potential, obviously. I'm very interested, obviously, as we all are, as every NBA fan is, to see what happens with the Spurs. Because no, I really do. I mean, I would trade for Trae Young or someone like that. Mm-hmm. He's still young. You know what I mean? I wouldn't trade for just any impact player, but if someone like Trae Young, who's a point guard, who I think Trae Young would open up Wemby's game just as much as Wemby would open up Trae's game. I think that's a match made in heaven. I really do. It's unlikely that it happens, but I would love to see that to happen because, yeah, we would probably get Wemby at least in the play-in next year. And, you know, Trae is your number one. It's never going to be anything. I know they made it to the conference finals, but that was a little fluky. Water again making a guest appearance. Trae is your number one. Guy's never going to do anything. So, you know, I fully expect Trae to be somewhere else at least by
you would think, yeah,
next All-Star break, if not definitely by this offseason. So, you know, whether that's the Lakers or otherwise, the Spurs really should get on it because, again, him and Wemby, it doesn't even matter how bad of a defender Trae is. Excuse me, how bad of a defender Trae is because of how incredible of a rim protector Wemby is. So I think the Spurs should get right on that. So, yeah, no, obviously,
yes.
We each have
and
Wemby.
So I'm going to segue this into Defensive Player of the Year, and I think that should be Victor Wembanyama as well. I know people are going to say Rudy Gobert. I think people are going to say Rudy Gobert.
You turned.
No, I wasn't really the
dark side.
People are going to say Rudy Gobert because of the fact that he's leading the number one defense. Some people do like Anthony Davis too because of the fact that the Lakers defense is like middle of the pack, and other than Anthony Davis, they don't really have many defenders. I completely understand both of those. This guy had 24 games of 5+ blocks. That's it. Put it down, stamp it in. Don't need to say anything else. Victor Wembanyama is the Defensive Player of the Year, a top 3 defender in the league. He averaged 3.6 blocks and 1.2 steals per game this season, and that was in only 29.7 minutes. So that's
I'm surprised.
What do you mean?
Wait. What changed though? Because I feel like we talked about this a week and a half ago, and I
think Gobert's going to win it. I would have Wemby. I think Gobert's winning it regardless. I think Gobert's winning it. I think Wemby's been the best defender. The only thing you said that you think Wemby's is like the best defender already in the league, and I was like, I think Anthony Davis is like right there too. But like that was kind of where we're talking about. But like no, I guess if I said it wrong before, I think Wemby deserves to be all the way.
Maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah.
You didn't co-sign it either, so I wasn't. I guess I was thinking you were going elsewhere.
No.
But no, yeah,
he's the best defender. He was the best defensive player in the league, and if you want to call him the best defender in the league, fine with me. Don't care about it. It's fine, no problem, no arguments. He's fake. He's fake.
Yeah, no, I mean, double co-sign that. I mean, I've been saying this for at least the last month or two, that I was leaning that way. And yeah, no, I mean, he was the best defensive player this year by far. Best defensive weapon, I think, possibly ever. I mean, when are you going to find a guy who's 7'5", who protects the rim to this degree, who can also switch out on a guard? and this is the worst
He's the
gonna
best. He's the best big
it's gotta-
defender since his former teammate, or not former teammate, since the former Spurs superstar. Like he's been best since Tim Duncan. I understand that Dwight Howard obviously blocked shots, but Dwight Howard couldn't slide out like like Dwight Howard and Ben Wallace. I mean, Ben Wallace could do a little bit, could switch out a little bit more, but they were winning like Rudy Gobert was winning by being such good paint protectors. Obviously, when you're around the rim, it's gone. Great defensive rebounders. Wemby can switch out. Obviously, Tim Duncan's that too, but Tim Duncan could slide his feet a little bit more than I think people would give him credit for, especially young Timmy. But yeah,
I would say probably since
KG. It was like KG was up.
KG.
Was thinking too. Like it's really like Wemby, AD, KG, and then obviously going back more the Admiral, Hakeem. Yeah, like he's trying to go towards Hakeem status, like the Admiral and Hakeem status, which is it's tough. It's really tough when Hakeem's really gonna be his benchmark in a lot of things, which is a really tough thing. But he's that good.
Yeah, if you go and look back at Hakeem and David Robson's stats from like the late
They're
80s,
fun.
early 90s, and some of their defensive stats, it'll break your mind. And Wemby's really like the first person to do that since them, and probably KG. Maybe not 3 blocks, but maybe 2 blocks and some steals. But KG is someone who could guard 1 through 5.
I also want to say Kawhi and Draymond deserve to be talked about. I mean, they're different defenders, but like the way, like how good of defenders they are, both of them deserve to be talked about. Like we're talking about these other defenders.
Yeah. I mean, Kawhi is probably the best perimeter defender since Pippen and Rodman.
GP too.
And actually, Rodman might be the best all around just defensive weapon, just because like he was literally just all defense, no offense, like dedicated his life to defense.
Where do you think Draymond compares to Rodman, real quick, before we go into before you say what you're saying? I'm just curious.
On defense,
I think he's like 95% of him.
It's different.
If that makes sense.
It's different because Rodman could probably guard like MJ and Kobe in his prime. I don't think Draymond can do that. Yeah, and Rodman, you could throw on Shaq. And Draymond's getting barbecue chickened by Shaq. And Rodman, they'd play one-on-one with Shaq, which is saying something. Rodman's a one-on-one. Actually, I won't retract that. Wemby could still be the best defensive weapon of all time. But Rodman really is a one-on-one. Draymond's an all-time great defender too. Don't get me wrong, but the fact that you could actually feel comfortable putting Rodman one-on-one with Shaq sometimes, it would have
been really interesting to see what 16 great Draymond would have been like on Shaq. I'm really interested to see what that would have been like.
I think it would have been disgusting, but it would have been interesting. I agree with you, but because Draymond definitely could lock down the centers of that day. For sure, he was giving them fits. I do have a gripe about this award, Keenan. Still, I just want to say
before we go on MVP.
You know, Marcus Smart's one of my all-time favorite players. I do not think he should have won it. Was that 22 when he won it?
Yes.
I feel like he should have. I feel like he should have won it in 20. I felt like he was the best defensive player that year in 20. Then COVID happened, and then we got back to the bubble. And they gave it to Giannis, and I remember that nobody was talking about Giannis winning Defensive Player of the Year that year. Like, no, I don't remember anybody talking about Giannis winning Defensive Player of the Year that year. And then we just, we got out of the bubble. They gave up their, 71 game awards or how many games we made it through. And they were like, yeah, Giannis Defensive Player of the Year.
And I thought the year Marcus Smart won,
do not remember any of these conversations previously. It should have been anybody but Marcus Smart. And again, he was my favorite player on that team, still one of my all-time favorite players, but Marcus Smart did not.
I feel like it's one of those awards.
He was a good defender. He was no longer.
I feel like it's one of those awards where you're like,
it's fucking
he's
lifetime
gotta get it.
Award.
Like, because like the year for me, always Kobe obviously deserves to have won an MVP, but the year Kobe won MVP, it didn't even feel like it. It felt like it was right for him to win it, and he was gonna win it. But like, if you're gonna honestly give me a vote, I would have voted for LeBron because I think LeBron had a better season, like all over. But also, like, Kobe should have won it before. So it was like, he has the chance. He's there. We've got to get Kobe one. Let's get him Kobe one. Not to that same extent, but it felt like Marcus Smart should have won it then. he's having a really the Celtics are playing really well. He's playing good defense. We give it to Marcus Smart kind of thing. Because I feel like that happens with voters all the time, where it's kind of let's give this guy one that we should have gave him before. I don't love it, but you just get it right the first time.
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know. It almost seems like there's groupthink with voters because
yeah.
He was.
Oh yeah. 100%.
I don't want to say he was past his prime. He wasn't past his prime when that happened, but he was past his defensive prime. At least he was at least not the defender he was. Again, that was 22. Mm-hmm. He had at least taken a step back, even from 21. I would say, which makes sense because the 20 bubble and the 21 season were a month and a half apart, pretty much. So, I'm sure a lot of players took an athletic decline. But let's move on.
Last but not least, the MVP of the league. Do you want me to go first, or do you want to?
We're there.
We are.
Go ahead. I'm very interested to hear where you go.
So, obviously, I don't think he's going to win it, but Luka's mine, and here's why. I think that Luka got his team to a 4 seed. Obviously, Jokic is the one he's going to be competing for, got him to a 2, and then Shea got his team to a 1. So I think those are your 3 guys. Luka's stats obviously are historic. He's averaging around 34. I almost said 44. I'm sure he's putting up Wilt numbers. He's averaging 34, 9, and 9. He's propelled that team up.
44
would be insane, especially in today's day. But he's catapulted that team up the ranks.
And Eddie.
They were looking like they possibly could have been a play-in team about a month and a half ago, and they're now all the way up to hosting the first round of the playoffs. I think that obviously they have Kyrie. They have good role players around him, Daniel Gafford going on. But I do think that Luka Doncic should be the MVP this year. I feel like he's done enough to obtain that award.
I agree. That's my MVP as well. I actually kind of spoiled this last week. I think we talked about it.
Yeah.
Jokic is probably going to win. That's what it sounds like. I hate that we kind of know because media members will kind of spoil who they're voting for.
I know some people have voted.
To me,
JJ Redick, I heard, is going Jokic, and then Chris Broussard, I think, is going Luka. Those are the 2 that I definitively know that they've said it out loud. Other than that, other people have probably said it. I just haven't seen it. So, but those are the only 2 I know, and one's Luka, one's Jokic thus far.
Yeah, I mean, so if you go by the MJ and the LeBron rules, then yeah, Jokic deserves this because he's the best player and he hasn't really dipped at all. And what are they, the 2 seed? Yeah. So of course he's deserving of it. If you ask me who I'm going to remember most from the 2024 NBA season, it's going to be Luka Doncic. This doesn't stick out to me like the previous MVP seasons of Jokic. Luka, just on any given night, you just look at Luka's box score and you're going to see some shit like 44 off 9 threes with 9 rebounds and 12 assists. And that's just his regular night. Not to take away from what SGA did. I think he's got a great supporting cast around him and we know what the team did. And that's not to say your supporting cast should take away from your MVP. But in the case of him and Tatum, I think they were great, but I don't think they were spectacular. I think they were consistent. And again, I think SGA should get. I would be mad at SGA getting second. I wouldn't be mad at SGA winning MVP. Let me just say that. But he
wouldn't hate it.
Wouldn't be my pick. But when it comes to this, who am I going to think of the most this year? Much like 06, where I think Kobe should have won that because he's the first player I think of. This is going to be Luka. Luka had a 73-point game. Luka, just like I said, you look at his box score on a given night, you're going to see something ridiculous. It's not many nights you'll see Luka even as 25. He is just an unbelievable scorer, and this is what it's going to be like for the next 8 years when it comes to him and Wemby and however long Jokic wants to play. The 3 of them, you're just going to see ridiculous final stat scores for the season and just ridiculous box scores. Luka's just incredible. And yeah, no, I think honestly with Jokic, it's similar to that 2014 LeBron season. If you go look at LeBron's 2014 stats, they're almost exact to his 2013 season, which people praise as his best season. No one talks about 2014 LeBron. And it's literally almost the same stats, and he didn't win MVP. Kevin Durant won MVP. And I think to some degree, that should happen. Like I feel like you almost should raise your own bar. You know what I mean? Like if you shouldn't just be able to stay afloat, which what Jokic does is not staying afloat. He puts up ridiculous numbers. So I don't want to make it seem like he's over.
When
here
you're in the
slacking,
God
but,
tier, you need to do something
you know.
above God tier things. Like, oh, wait,
Yeah.
Mike's got to win
Like,
MVP
if
this
this
year? Oh, he
was-
won 72 games. Yeah, I got to give it to him. He's got to get this one.
Yeah, like if
He won 69. No, we're just going to give that to Carl. Like, you don't need to give that
that's
one
the one MJ got robbed of. If you want to say MJ got robbed of one, he got robbed in
to.
97.
Let's just
He
not
went from
give it to
72
Mike. Let's give
69
it to
games.
Carl.
You should go back to back.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
Jokic, if Jokic went up in scoring or if he went up in assists, I think everything pretty much stayed the same. And the big part of this, if we were talking about Jokic all year, fine. It was definitively Embiid up until he got injured. Like,
Oh, yeah.
nobody wanted to give Embiid the MVP after what he did in the playoffs last year. No one wanted to give him the MVP. And he was playing so great, we
He
had
took
to
it.
give it to him. We had to give him his props. And I don't remember even people considering Jokic being number 2 at that point. And, Embiid got injured, and then all of a sudden people are like, probably the favorite to an MVP, Nikola Jokic. And I'm like, hold on here. Why all of a sudden? When to me, like you said, Keenan, I completely agree. Luka had the most outstanding season, and he's going to be the player I remember most from this season. Not that Jokic cares at all, but yeah, no, Jokic would not be my pick.
I feel
And
like
I wouldn't even be mad if he was not top 3.
I
honestly.
feel like that with MVPs, I almost feel like they've been jumbled in weird ways. Like over the last 6 years, I think the right amount of people have won the right amount of MVPs, but I also just sometimes feel like last year I thought it should have been Jokic, and then 2 years ago I thought it should have been Embiid. Like in my personal opinion, not that it really makes a whole difference because both of them won the MVP, but Jokic last year was 63% from the floor and 0.2 away from a triple double. Those kind, he was. I remember Jokic last year being insane. Obviously, I think Embiid deserved it too. That's why it's kind of doesn't really matter. But then 2 years ago when Jokic was a 6 seed, I thought Embiid should have won that one. But it doesn't. Again, in the end, doesn't matter because Embiid got his. Jokic has 2. Probably going to get his 3rd and get into Moses Malone and all of them territory. So kudos to Jokic. But all right, how do you want to go through these playoffs? Do you want to
Let's go through the first round.
First round? Okay.
Let's do the first round first. Let's go through the matchups we already know. And then after that, we can kind of just give our conference finals. We can, I guess, briefly simulate the semifinals. But let's go through the first round and all the matchups we have this weekend. And then we'll finish with the finals, conference finals.
So I'll do the 1 seeds last because those are the only things that we don't have decided yet. What's up?
And let's not forget our bold predictions. You have 5? You have 5 or do you have 3?
I had 3. I can come up with 2 more, but I have 3.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
I got 5.
Okay, I didn't know. Okay. So, yeah. So first matchup, we're going to go in the West, Nuggets Lakers.
This is going to be a great series.
Yes.
There was part of me who wanted to pick the Lakers in this series. A part of me. I love how they're playing right now. I thought they played the Nuggets great last year despite the sweep. I think you're getting LeBron on rest. AD's playing some of the best ball of his career. They know who their top 8 are. It's everything you'd want out of the Lakers team if you're a Lakers fan.
Yep.
But you're running into Denver. And Keenan, I do this literally every single year. I have all these preconceived notions of what I think the playoffs is going to look like, what players are going to look like. And then you turn on a game like the playing games the other night, and it's just completely different from the regular season. It's night and day.
Yes.
And literally every mid-April, it gets me every time, You look at it the other night, I was going to roll with Philly, and you see Miami get up 14, and they're busting out that zone, and you're like, man, I forget. Miami's just built for this. And, Philly sometimes a lot of the time can get soft in the playoffs.
Yep.
Their credit. Batum, big shouts to Batum, Nick Batum. He kind of led the way for their comeback. And, Philly's got some dogs on that team, but you just forget how different the playoffs look. So I can say how much I think the Lakers are live in this series and how much, like you said, they're catching Denver at the right time, catching them in the first round. But all that being said, you're still catching Jokic at the peak of his prime. And it'd be hard for me to see him cough up a first round to a Lakers team, to any team. This Lakers team would be one to do it. But if Jamal Murray's healthy, I have a hard time believing that Jokic is really going to let this slip out because he's known to up his scoring in the playoffs. He kind of tones down the playmaking a little bit. Like he, for whatever reason, just has an uptick in scoring. So I could just see him, not saying make Anthony Davis look like barbecue chicken, but hey, Anthony Davis does not fare well against Jokic. Jokic can turn into goddamn Hakeem Olajuwon at times in the low block. So, he can score whenever he wants in the low block. And if you need scoring Jokic, you're going to get that. If you want, playmaker Jokic, you're going to get that. He's obviously going to own the boards. It'll take 7 games for the Lakers to take him out. I initially wanted to say Nuggets in 7. I'm going to go Nuggets in 6, though.
So I don't have much to add. Nuggets in 6 as well. I think that this won't be like last year. If the Lakers are going to get him, this would be the perfect time. You get the most rest. You get the best health that you guys are going to have throughout the entirety of the playoffs. Obviously, LeBron's ready to go. That team's got 5 days. Obviously, Anthony Davis is like the Lakers are set up for it. Gabe Vincent showed his head. Playoff Gabe's doing his thing. So Lakers are in a good position, but how often do you see the best player in the league at the peak of their powers lose in the first round? You don't. It just doesn't really happen. So Nuggets in 6. Good Lakers, good job. Bad draw. Is what it is. You'll probably lose.
Can I change?
Yeah, go on.
I'm changing. I'm just gonna go Nuggets in 7.
Go now. Okay.
Just because
it could happen, but okay.
They really do know their 8. They do know their 8. I do think that Denver bench is susceptible. They're not as deep at the Lakers. I just ultimately can't see it. But man, LeBron's got that hop in his step. AD is playing as well as he has. I can't ultimately see it, but they can at least take him to 7. 6 seems more realistic, but I'm gonna go with 7. That's what I'm rooting for.
Same.
And I do think the Lakers could steal game 1. I think they could steal game 1. And again, look, Nuggets were live for that 1 seed and just outright lost to the Spurs when they were up big on the Spurs. When it was just the Spurs and Grizzlies the remaining 2 games, and it looked like they would just wrap it up. And that's not good heading into the playoffs. They've been resting Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray's been banged up. So that's signs of life if you're LA. And they're not the greatest defensive teams. And I think actually that's really where Denver will exploit is Michael Porter Jr. And if Jamal Murray's healthy, I think those 2 could get off. That would make Jokic's life a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then the Nuggets should maybe not roll, but man, for a team that already can get whatever they want offensively, this team can lock it down a little bit in the paint, right? They'll make life tough for Jokic a little bit as best they can with LeBron and AD and Rui and all the size they have. But on the perimeter, I think Jamal Murray, if he's got his burst back and he's, really as close to 100% as he could be in the way MPJ's been playing the second half of the season, they should be okay.
Yeah.
They should be okay. But I'm going to say Nuggets in 7. That's what I'm rooting for is a 7-game series. So we'll go with that.
All right. Timberwolves, number 3 against the number 6 Suns. Do you want me to go first or do you want to?
I'll go ahead. I talked about Grayson Allen and how surprised I was with him this season.
Mm-hmm.
This Suns team was, if you caught him on the right night, you'd be like, there's something there. And then if you caught him another day, you'd be like, all right, playing team, like, they're not going to do much. Like, there's just not much continuity here. I actually felt a lot of how I felt about the Warriors is how I felt about the Suns, honestly. Like, they just didn't seem like they had late game continuity. It seemed like they had the players for it, and they seemed like they had the talent for it, but that they didn't really form anything yet. I've liked the Royce O'Neal addition in the second half of the season. I thought he brought some stability and just some versatility to their team. This is a terrible matchup, though, just for the Timberwolves. I mean, we just saw in the last game of the season, the Suns killed them. I think the Suns might have swept them in the season series. I don't know. Not that that really matters, again, because of how different the seasons are between the regular season and the postseason. But the fact that the Suns can shoot, the fact that the Suns showed signs of life that they actually can play defense, and the fact that in the fourth quarter you can turn to Durant, Beal, Booker, or kick it out to Grayson Allen, which is not what they had last year in these playoff games. They did not have reliable shooters to kick it out to. And the fact that you have 3 bona fide one-on-one scorers, and on the other end, you're going to be looking at Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns, who does not have the best playoff resume. He is at times nowhere to be found in the playoffs. So advantage Suns to me. So I'm going Suns in 6.
Well, so far we're the same. I've got Phoenix in 6. They're built for this. Rudy Gobert has proven also to be a guy who, as defensive player of the year level in the regular season and the playoffs, that does dip because people can exploit matchups more. You're going to see him more on switches. You're going to see him more away from the basket. And I think with that being the case, you're going to be able to kind of take advantage of his lack of speed, lack of lateral quickness. I like this. I like the Suns. They've been playing pretty good basketball. Won 6 of their last 8. They've beaten Denver since March 27th. They've beaten Denver, beaten New Orleans, Cleveland, Minnesota twice, split with the Clippers, beat Sacramento. So over the last about 3 weeks of the season, they've been playing a lot of good teams, playoff teams that you're going to see either now or later in the playoffs. And they've been faring well, winning those games. Finally got Bradley Beal fully healthy, Booker fully healthy, Durant fully healthy, in a rhythm, playing together for more than just like 1 to 2 games at a time. They have more depth than they did last year, so they definitely look better and they have a better chance to keep moving on than comparatively to last year. I like the Suns in 6. I think this is a very good season for the Timberwolves. They just found themselves in a bad matchup, and that happens. Matchups make fights, so just found themselves in a bad matchup, but if they win the series, I'm not shocked by any means. I think that just shows how great Anthony Edwards is, and maybe Karl Anthony Towns is not a kitty cat. And then Rudy Gobert can really can be the best defensive player in the league, as the awards suggest he's going to be. So, but I got Phoenix in 6.
I'm actually not worried about the Timberwolves defense as much as I am their offense. Like, I think Gobert is going to be fine unless they put KD at the 5. That could obviously cause some problems. But I actually think how they play their defense and the size they have on their team in general, outside of Mike Conley, I think they could match up pretty well and give Phoenix some problems. But I just don't
Reed's
see them.
going to be a huge factor in this series.
For sure. I just don't see them ultimately having the scoring. That being said, if Karl Anthony Towns turns into everything we ever expected him to be, they could win the series if he's that true number 2, but I don't see it.
Let me move to the series that I'm most excited about in the entire first round. In the entire first round, Mavs, Clippers. I think this is the 3rd time that they've played each other within the last 4 years. Roughly 4 or 5 years. I know Luka's seen them every time he's been in the playoffs, I believe. But I could be wrong. Maybe I think the Warriors run, he might, like when he lost in the conference finals, he might not have. But played against him, they know each other. I'll go check that real quick. But I know
they faced the Jazz. Must be that first round.
Yeah, they faced the Jazz. Yeah, he's seen him 3 times in the playoffs, and the Clippers have gotten the best of him twice. But he's clearly been the best player by a landslide. So, but this time, I'm going to just quickly go into it. I think he's going to be the best player, and I do think that the Mavs are going to get the W here. I like the Mavs in 7. Ooh, I wanted to go 6.
I just keep thinking about the screen grabs when like Luka would have a big game against the Clippers, and they would just have a fake screen grab of Luka in an interview It's being like, these niggas can't fuck with me talking about the Clippers, and it makes me laugh every time I see anything like that with Luka.
Because they legitimately can't. There's nothing. They can't do anything. And this is when Kawhi was in his like prime defense, like close to prime defensively with Paul George in his prime defensively. They couldn't do a thing with him. They couldn't do a thing with Luka at all. I mean, last game 7 they played, Luka had a smooth, cool 46, 7, and 14. They just happened to lose by 15 last time he played them in the playoffs. So we'll see how that goes. I do think it's Dallas in 7.
That's Luka Jordan.
You got Kyrie there. You've got Kyrie there. You've got another guy who, if you're not, which we're gonna talk about Kyrie and Luka here in the bold predictions, but little foreshadow. But you've got a guy who can get you 40 on any given, get you 50 if need be. We've watched him go for 41 in a game 5. We've watched him hit one of the biggest shots in NBA history in a game 7 of a finals. Like, he's been there, done that. He's been in the moment. You've obviously got Luka, and then you've got great role players around him. I don't love how the Clippers have been playing. I know Kawhi is he fully healthy? Like, is he fine?
He's playing game 1.
He's playing game 1 because I know he's been out. So, like, the Clippers are just doing Clippers thing. Like, I don't fully trust them right now. And then, obviously, if Kawhi's not 100%, that means James Harden's got to be big. And I have no faith in that. So, yeah, Mavs in 7. Trying to talk myself into Mavs in 6.
Yeah, I mean, everybody and their fucking mama is picking the Mavs. And it's kind of funny to me, honestly. Like, I get it. He torches the Clippers, but he torches everybody. Talking about Luka, obviously. This Clippers team, up until I think the All-Star break, was probably the hottest team in the league. Then they really just kind of jogged through the second half of the season. I'm not worried about the Clippers. I mean, we want to talk about playoff Luka, which, again, is a real thing. He's Luka Jordan. He raises his game up. He's a killer. Wouldn't surprise me to see him drop fucking 70 in a playoff game. Like, just anything with Luka, I wouldn't be surprised at this point. He just puts up the most ridiculous stat lines, right? But playoff Kawhi is a thing, too. And, he's been out since March 31st, but we do this every year. And every time he steps back on the court, that dude is averaging something like 28 to 32 points a game. I get it. You're worried about his knee. And to that point also, at the last couple times we've seen him kill it on the playoffs or on the court in the playoffs, he ends up having a knee injury and not coming back. Would that happen again for the third time where he suffers another knee injury and just can't complete a series or can't compete in the playoffs?
I hope not.
I hope not. So he seems to be healthy. He is playing game 1. Look, they still got an incredible roster, the Clippers do. They still have one of the best coaches in the league in Ty Lue. I would say they have a better roster than, the Dallas Mavericks. I think they could not lock them up, but I do think they could give them some problems on defense. Yes, you got Kyrie. Yes, you got Luka. But outside of that, you don't really have another player who can create their own shot. Whereas the Clippers do have Kawhi. They have Paul George. They got Norman Powell. They got James Harden. They got Westbrook. That's 5 guys who can get their own shot, create their own shot. They got size. I think the Clippers are being completely overlooked. Again, if Kawhi's truly hurt, that goes out the window. But I'm under the assumption that he's healthy. He's been practicing all week. He's playing in game 1. And Paul George is going to make an all-NBA team again this year. Paul George is no slouch. You still have someone.
You think
there.
He sneaks onto the third team?
I would think so. He had a great season. He had a really good season.
There's like 23 guys who could be on the All NBA team. That's why I'm asking. But I think it's interesting. He deserves it, but I don't know if he will be. But I think he's played well enough for himself.
And if you're telling me he doesn't, then he's been an All NBA level player this year. So you couple
100%.
You couple that with James Harden, who he's James Harden in the playoffs, but he's also still James Harden. He's still a threat. And you couple that with Westbrook and the energy he gives them. You couple that with Norman Powell, who's a dog. You couple that, again, with Ty Lue and the depth that they have. I think they're being completely overlooked. The fact that everybody's picking against them, and again, I get it. I get why, but this is if they lose, it's because of a Clippers reason. It's not going to be a basketball reason. I can't see the Mavs just straight up getting the Clippers out of here unless Luka does like some insane shit, which he's susceptible to do. Of course. Wow, that's like my word of the day now, susceptible. But I don't know. Outside of him and Kyrie, I really don't see, unless they're getting wide open threes all over the place. That's hard to do against that team with the offensive firepower the Clippers have. What they showed you again in the early part of the season, what they can do. That was a long stretch where they were playing great basketball on both sides of the ball. I think that's still somewhere in them. And again, if Kawhi is Kawhi, good luck. Good luck, because he can go toe-to-toe with Luka. And again, you got Paul George, Russ, James Harden. You got a crew there. So I'm going Clippers in 7. I do think it's going to be a 7-game series. I think it's going to be everything we think it's going to be. Again, so long as everyone stays healthy.
Okay. We'll see. And we'll move on to the 1 seed Thunder facing either the Kings or Pelicans. Does this make a difference in either way you feel about the Thunder?
I'll say this. If the Pelicans had Zion, I would be picking the Pelicans versus the Thunder. I think that's a terrible matchup with their size. If this was the Lakers, if the Lakers would have fallen in that Pelicans game and then would have found their way in the 1-8 matchup against the Thunder, I would have picked the Lakers. And honestly, if this Kings team was at full strength, if they had Monk and Horter, I might pick the Kings. I do think the Kings, if it's the Pelicans without Zion, I think it's a 5-game series. And if it's the Kings versus the Thunder, I think it's a 6-game series. I think you did see, at least from De'Aaron Fox, nobody can guard him. No one can stay in front of him. He elevates his play. And you can't discount 7 games with the Warriors last year. That's like almost a PhD in playoff basketball, because that was a true like heavyweight series last year, and they measured up. They really did. So you can't discount that with Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. I think they can create a lot of offense for their shooters like Keegan Murray. You got, what's my man's name? Was it Keon Cole the other night who locked up Steph Curry? So, I mean, if they're getting that effort from their guys, Mike Brown's a really good coach. He's proven to be a great coach for this team. Look, the Kings are the most experienced team in this series out of those two. If that's the hypothetical matchup, I would favor the Kings in that play-in game. So, I would lean the Thunder. Obviously, I think it would be them in 6, but I don't think it would be an easy series by any means. And I don't think, the more sophisticated teams will be interested to see Dagno in a playoff series. But I don't think they're necessarily gonna, give Sabonis the problems other teams would, given that they're so young. So I think this would be a favorable matchup for Sabonis. I do wish, again, if they had Monk and they had Horter, especially Monk, someone else who can create for them, that would be a leg up. But I think this is going to be a very fun series. You edge towards a healthier team, but, in this case, the Kings are the vets, so you can't discount them. So I would say 6 games if it's the Kings, 4 or 5 games if it's the Pelicans, minus Zion.
So, funny enough, I think the Thunder are being a little slept on too. The way you were talking, I think that they were the best team in the West record-wise. I do think that they would have the opportunity with them being young. I know that these series will be definitely tough, but they won 57 games for a reason, in my personal opinion. So I think that they could, as I think the Warriors or the Lakers or the Pelicans would definitely give them series, I do think they could win those series. I probably would have them winning probably all, but maybe the Lakers. Would have to think about how that actually go. But I have them beating the Kings in 6 or the Pelicans in 5. It would be the Pelicans in 6 with Zion. Zion for me doesn't change the entirety of the conversation. I think the Kings are going to win that game now that the fact that Zion is, I think Zion changes the conversation, but what I mean by that more so is not, Zion doesn't make them go from not winning the series to winning the series for me. That's what I meant by change. He obviously changes Zion. He changes the conversation.
I'll counterpoint that.
You go on and counterpoint that
once you're finished, but right now,
yeah, go for it.
That's a terrible matchup for the Thunder. The Thunder have no big man depth at all. Yes, they won 57 games, but that was much like the Kings last year, where they stayed healthy the most. Like
Shea missed games this year.
As healthy,
but, yeah, go on.
He did, but by and large, their entire team stayed very healthy. I think they got 82 games out of Chet, which I would not have expected. So their core was very much more healthy than anybody else in the West. The Pelicans, the second half, like I said, they were coming on strong. We saw it the other night. The Lakers with AD had no answer for Zion. Thunder would have gotten eaten up by the Pelicans. They did not match up well with the Pelicans during the season. They're deserving of the 1 seed. Don't get me wrong. And I think they're very well coached, and I think they're a smart team. I think they're wise beyond their years. But like you said, styles make fights, and matchups are matchups. Someone with bulk and someone with strength, like the Pelicans, like the Lakers. Yeah, I think they would have got him up out of here. LeBron would have lived at the line. AD would have had success against that team for sure. And then Zion, man, I would have, Chet's fucking chest would have caved in with Zion going to the rim, lowering his shoulder on him. I think that would have been Zion's coming out party. I really do think so. Like, coupled with that play-in, I think Zion would have put up incredible numbers. And I just think it would have been a tough matchup with Zion, Valanciunas. Ingram's even got some length to him. He's 6'10" at a small forward. So I think their size, Herb Jones playing the 2 at 6'7", I think their size would have caused problems for the Thunder. So that's my counterpoint. Obviously, we may not even see it, but I really do think they probably would have got the Thunder out of here, along with the Lakers.
Okay.
I'll even say this. I probably would have leaned Warriors too, had Warriors gotten through. And I think that would have been, Warriors didn't have the strength or size, but they would have had the obviously the mind. Yeah. They got the IQ and the playoff experience.
They had all. I was gonna say the Lakers played the Thunder very well this season. The Warriors were 1-3, but 2 games were in overtime, and then obviously the Pelicans. So it makes sense. I just think I think the Thunder would have had. I think the Thunder very much have a chance. I just think Shea is a problem, and no one can stay in front of him. But regardless,
maybe so. Yeah. I just think regardless of any series, even this series, if Chet gets in foul trouble, who's the big guy you go to? Who do you have to come off the bench and just give you fouls, like 4 fouls, just to spare someone who's 6'10" or can protect the rim a little bit? You got no one after Chet.
Yeah, doesn't say their size is definitely going to be something they're going to have to address next season. This season, though, I do think with the fact that the Kings are not at full health, Pelicans are not at full health, I think the Kings win that game, and then I have the Thunder over the Kings in 6. I do think that the Warriors last year makes a team like that battle tested. Sabonis has been phenomenal this year against the Kings. I believe he's putting up something close to alive to 22, 13, and 11 against the Kings this year. I think Shea's averaging around like 34. Oh, sorry, Sabonis against the Thunder, sorry. And then Shea against the Kings, I think is averaging like 34 a game-ish, roughly. But I got the Thunder over the Kings. But if it's the Pelicans, it's the same thing. I got the Thunder winning in the first round. So I'll quickly recap all of the West before we go into the East. Kyle has Denver in 7. I've got Denver in 6. Kyle's got Phoenix in 6. I've got Phoenix in 6. Kyle has the Clippers in 7. I have Dallas in 7. Kyle has OKC in 6 over the Kings or 5 over the Pelicans due to the health of Zion. I have the Thunder in 6 over the Kings or 5-6 over the Pelicans as well. So we pretty much line up, other than you have the Clippers, I have the Mavericks. Now going to the East.
Curious where you would have had the Warriors had they made it or had they won the other night.
I probably would have had Thunder in 7, but then I think I would have probably ended up going Warriors in 7 because I would have thought about the 7th game. But like thinking about it now, I would have had Thunder. Like if the Thunder were winning, it would have been in 6. So I probably would have leaned Thunder in 6. But then I would have had to think on it more. But I think I would have leaned Thunder in 6 because if it goes to a 7th game, I can't. It's Steph in the 7th game. I'm like, I can't bet against that personally. But so Knicks 76ers, since I started 2-7. Knicks and Sixers.
Oh man.
Do you want me to start?
Let me hear you.
Okay, yeah, I'll start.
Yeah. Actually,
okay.
I'll go ahead, actually. I think whoever wins this series is probably getting to the conference finals. I'll say that. And I'm struggling with this series more than any other series in the entire playoffs. I don't think Embiid looked great the other night, but I like how he competed. I like how he figured it out. I think the Embiid of last year and years past would have kind of tapped out. with the Heat up 14 in the first half, with the Heat really putting the pressure on you, with the Heat playing a zone, which NBA players can't seem to figure out for whatever reason.
No idea.
But he got help from his bench, and I think they got some dogs, and I think they got some depth. And look, the Knicks are without Julius Randle, who is their second shot creator. So I do think if the Sixers can cause them any problems on defense, like if they can give Jalen, they can put Batum on Jalen and give him problems and force the ball out of his hands.
Batum. Who's Nicholas Batum, by the way? Why did he went like 2016 Clay against the, he was making everything. He was making everything.
He did.
Oh man, sorry. Go on.
Batum Renaissance over here, but he's been a key player for them. Absolutely. If they can get minutes from Buddy Hield in their bench, and this series is going to be Kyle Lowry's type of series. We see that the refs just call nothing. If this was going to be Heat Knicks, I'm telling you, you would have seen some like 85, 82 games.
Oh yeah,
and I don't think it's going to be much different. I don't think it's going to be much different with Philly. They don't play a high octane brand of basketball. They got shooters, but they're going to be running everything through Embiid. I'm going to go a 7-game series, and Keenan, I'm going to let you explain from there because I truly, at this moment, still don't know who I'm picking. So I'm going to let you go ahead. I'm going to say it's 7 games, and that's all I got.
If Joel Embiid was 90% plus healthy, I would say Sixers and maybe 6. He's not.
Which I think he is.
He is. He did not look it.
I don't think he's in shape.
You think that was more?
I don't think he's in shape.
Do you think that was more in shape than it was his knee?
I think so.
Okay.
Just because he is.
You know what?
And I don't think they would have brought him back unless he was.
You know what, Kyle? Healthy. I'm gonna take your word for that. I'm gonna take your word for that.
You're just gonna go off my word. That's it. Just gonna go off my word.
Yeah, you're Woj to me. I'm gonna go off your word. Sixers and 7.
Sixers and 7 because Kyle said that
Sixers
healthy.
Right. Well, because here's the thing. Because I think if Embiid is if he's just gassed and just tired, but he needs to get himself some wind. I mean, one, this is not the series particularly you want to do that in, but because this Knicks team's gonna give you a dog fight. But
there's some dogs.
But I mean, yeah, Embiid. I like the fact you've got Kelly Oubre. He plays aggressive basketball. He's been giving that team a spark. Nicholas Batum, Kyle Lowry, you've got veterans who have been there, done that, know what it's like to play in big spots. Tyrese Maxey has emerged. You've got Buddy Hield to shoot as well to help stretch the floor. And then you've got Joel Embiid. They have no answer. Obviously, there's Mitchell Robinson. You've got Harvenstein. So you've got bodies you can throw at Embiid. But if that's Embiid just being tired and not him being 75% health and he's at close to 90, then I think the Sixers win the series. If you were telling me that if that's Embiid at bad health, truly bad health, then I do think the Knicks win in 7. But you're right. Embiid did show you something. Embiid's okay, I'm going to score 12 points through 3 quarters. You're going to give me a couple big threes. Regardless if he was able to walk into them, you still got to make them. Got that big offensive rebound, the and one. Looked like he cared. I've got the Sixers in 7.
So the X factor to me is Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
If he can spare Embiid and give him some 25-point efforts, which is gonna be hard versus his team,
he's gonna see OG.
I know
often.
We acknowledge that the refs don't call any. Right? Yeah, he's exactly.
OG and Dante DiVincenzo.
So like we said, with the refs, they don't call anything anymore, and they already do that in the playoffs. But that Sixers game, they were go ahead. Just do whatever the hell y'all want on the court. It was literally hockey. The Heat Knicks series last year was hockey. And if they're going to call even less than what they normally do in the playoffs.
But the game's soft.
He's not going to survive.
Game's soft. It's very soft.
It is. I mean, look, 95% of the year it is. It is. I would agree with that 95% of the time. But they decided after the All-Star break, Adam Silver's y'all calling this soft? All right, we're going all the way back to 90s and 80s ball, I guess. So, I'm here for it. But when you're in a matchup with the Heat or the Knicks in particular, the brand of basketball they play, they want to be physical. They want to put pressure on the refs. It's going to be extremely hard for a team like Philly. But Philly has the dogs for it. Tobias Harris, maybe not, but Batum's built for it. Lowry's built for it. Healed, like you said.
I didn't even mention Tobias
and if
Harris.
Maxey's who...
That wasn't even one of my reasons.
That's the story. That's the story for Tobias. And if he can give them anything, Keenan, he can truly put them over the top. If he just averages like 15 to 18, which is like his career, really, if he could do that,
if he can average an efficient 15. Yeah, no, they'd be great. They could beat anybody.
Hit some threes for you, give you 2 or 3. But there's just some games when he disappears and you don't know he's on the court. But even if you get 2 games from Tobias, that might help you out. Thing is, with the Knicks, they have such a home court advantage. They play incredible at home. Jalen Brunson. Look, this team actually, Keenan, they remind me so much of the IT4 Celtics because we had one shot creator and everyone else around him was just some fucking dogs, bro. Like, they were just dogs. And that's what this Knicks team is. You had Josh Hart and DiVincenzo and, the pride of Villanova
Straight
out
out
there.
Of the 01
just like,
Sixers book. Hey, Brunson, you
this is
do it.
such a
We're gonna just play defense around you.
It's such a Tibbs team. Like, they're so tough and they're so built for this type of series. Like, they want to go at Embiid and they want to go at, because like you said, they do have bodies to throw in Embiid. They got Hartenstein. They got Mitchell Robinson. Hartenstein could be in that most improved conversation, by the way. Who's that third? I feel like they got a third big they can throw at him too.
I'll look.
That I'm not thinking of. That don't matter. But man, and if the Knicks had Randall, I mean, I've been saying since last year, like, this is going to be their contender year, and the next year they're off. Like, I think next year it's going to be championship or bust.
Were you thinking Precious?
Achua? Yes, Precious, yes. So I think if this Knicks team's who I've been bigging them up to be, they win this series, but at the same time, this Sixers team is only a 7th seed and only in the play-in and only in this situation because Embiid did get hurt. And if Embiid, like you said, if Embiid can just get back to midseason form at all, they should be able to run through this Knicks team without Randall. And I don't want to make it sound like run through, like they should beat him in 5. I don't mean it like that, but they should take care of business with the Knicks, with them not having Randall, because they really don't have anybody else who can really get their own shot. But since they've gotten Anunoby, OG, they've really taken off as a team. But as we said, the playoffs are a different animal. And if it's really just Jalen Brunson versus the world, that could be tough, excuse me. But they do have one of the best coaches in the league in Tibbs. They got one of the best rosters. They for sure, they're cut from that same cloth as the Miami Heat. It does not matter who they roll out there. They're going to figure out a way. I'm going to roll with you, Sixers at 7, but I feel stupid betting against the Knicks. I really do. I really do, because I feel like they're going to make a fool out of both of us. But for us having this much confidence in Embiid. But again, if Embiid's on that Jokic level, on that Doncic level, if he's top 5, it shouldn't even matter who they're facing against on the other side. Especially, again, I want to point this out, without Randall. Randall would make such a difference in this series. Even though he's not a great playoff performer, he can at least give you the threat of creating his own shot, which they do not have without him. So that's what it comes down to for me. And again, if Maxey can be Maxey the way he's been this year, give him 25, you should be good. That should be enough to alleviate things and so forth. So I'm going to shut the fuck up because we are going way too long here. So
Bucks Pacers. I'm going to quickly go on this.
Oh, man. Damn.
I'm going to quickly go on this.
First,
if the Bucks were seeing any other team in the first round, I would absolutely have them losing this. I think the Pacers they can match up with, even though I think the Pacers can run all over them. And if Tyrese Halliburton was 100%, I probably would have the Pacers again. But clearly, since he came back from his injury, he hasn't been the same as Tyrese Halliburton, and that's understandable. Obviously, injuries derail a lot. I don't know what Giannis's outlook is. I think he's out game 1. I think he might be returning mid-series from what I've seen. I don't really know. Dame, this is on you, buddy. I'm going Milwaukee in 6. I'm going Milwaukee.
Why are you talking to Dame like he's your next door neighbor?
Well, Dame, this is on you, buddy. Well, this is what you came to Milwaukee for, to be in big playoff moments, to make a big playoff run, to be in important games again. and your guy's not going to be fully healthy. He's got that Kevin Durant calf strain. Like, hopefully he can come back and be fine, but you've got a not fully healthy Tyrese Halliburton, but he's still obviously out there playing. They've got Siakam, Miles Turner. They're also without, oh my God, Benedict, but I can't think of his last name.
Benedict Mathurin.
Mathurin, thank you. I don't know why his last name just eluded me, but they're out without him too. So, like, you have the upper hand here. You have also, I mean, Chris Middleton's also playing too. So, like, you guys should win this series. Milwaukee in 6. If they don't win the series, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a huge problem. Milwaukee in 6.
Well, you said a couple things there that are going to factor in greatly to how I handicap this series. If the Pacers had Benedict Mathurin right now, as presently constructed, I'd probably pick the Pacers outright.
Yep.
You also alluded to Giannis having the same injury as Kevin Durant.
Yes.
We all famously know what happened when Kevin Durant came back a little too quick.
Yes.
Towards Achilles next. Everything I've heard about this injury, and I think Dame even alluded to it. I don't know if he said he had the injury earlier in the season or in another season, but he said it's a 3 or 4 week injury. Giannis, memory serves correct, got injured last week.
Mm-hmm.
So if he comes back mid-series, it's going to be in an emergency situation, and he's likely not going to be 100%. And it's a calf. I don't know if you've ever pulled a muscle in your calf or anything, but it's entirely painful, and it cripples you. There's nothing you can do. Not a thing you can do. And as we know, Giannis isn't, he's not a jump shooter. He plays a very aggressive style, a very explosive style of basketball. So, like you said, if Halliburton was 100% and this was what's giving me problems, I mean, I talked about Linsanity earlier. Fucking Halliburton looks like that early season, in-season run mixed with like all the 20 and 15 games he was putting up makes him look like he had a Linsanity run because he has not been close to the same player in the second half of the season since he's been back from injury.
Yeah.
It's gotten a little bit better as of late, but the Bucks aren't great on defense, especially when your point of attack defender is Dame, and he's going to be guarding Halliburton. I don't see that ending well for Dame. I really do want to pick the Pacers. The counterpoint, Keenan, the other main point you said that is giving me kind of pause because I'm like, all right, he's known to be a playoff killer. This is as healthy as he's been in a couple of years is Chris Middleton.
Yes.
If you've got Dame, even though Dame hasn't looked Dame time this year, he's looked about 85% of the Dame Lillard we know. If you got that showing up, if you can get 2 or 3 great games out of Dame, and you can get Middleton and Brook Lopez to do what they do and play good defense, because their defense has looked okay and at least better under Doc and at least tougher. Yeah. But man, that's a hell of a lot easier to play defense when you got Giannis and Brook Lopez behind you. You're probably not gonna have Giannis this series. Let's be real. The only way Giannis is showing up this series is in an emergency situation, which they might need. And we saw what happened last year when he came back from injury. It was not the same. So I'm going to lean Pacers here. I don't love it. I don't love it at all. I don't love it at all. I'm going to go Pacers in 7. And I'm not confident. If Halliburton was the Halliburton we saw, again, early on in the season, that would be my pick. But he has at least been playing. And we're not going to see Giannis for sure the first 3 games, I think. And shouldn't see him at all. Should not see him the entire series.
This is also, if they want to win a championship, again, this is on Dame. You need to take care, Haywood and Middleton need to take care of business, especially at home early. Make it so Giannis does not have to come back for the series.
That's what should happen.
You make it, show why you are supposed to be one of the top 5 point guards in the league. Come back, play well in this series so Giannis can have a full week and a half of rest and then come back on his scheduled, probably supposed to time, rather than having to force his way back. But yeah,
they're the more battle-tested team, but I think things are going to open up for Siakam.
Yes.
So if Siakam's unstoppable and Halliburton can give you 90% of what he does and just outplays Dame, that might be enough. But like you said, if Dame and Middleton and Lopez, Bobby Portis, Pat Bev, all of them, they got some dogs there. Like, say what you want about Doc and, it's a tough situation taking over a team midseason anyway. His situation was not great anyway. And people have their own opinions on Doc in the postseason. We know there's been some not great outcomes. Rick Carlisle's a really good coach and a really good game planner, so he might have the edge over Doc there. I think he definitely has the edge over Doc there. But if Doc just says, hey, I'm playing these 7, and that's it, you do got a reliable 7 there. It's still Dame Lillard. It's still Middleton. So, yeah, I would say this is the other one that gives me a ton of trouble, much like the Philly Knicks series. I'm going to lean right now. My heart says Pacers. If you ask me Sunday, Keenan, I might have a different answer, but I'm going to go with the Pacers right now. So, which hurts because I love Dame. Dame's my guy.
Alrighty, so next we've got Cleveland and Orlando. I think this has been a very good season for Orlando. This is going to be a very good series. I think this has been a very good season for Orlando. I think their lack of shooting, which you're trying to address with Klay Thompson possibly in the offseason, I think that will come back to bite them. As this Cleveland team hasn't made too many advances in the playoffs, they do have Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, Donovan Mitchell, who's been in big playoff games before, Max Strus, who was just on a finals run. I think they have a little bit too much veteran experience for this Orlando Magic team. The Magic definitely can play with them, but I do lean the Cavs winning in 6 games.
The Cavs have a really good roster.
Yes.
I feel like they have a deep team, and I feel like they should be better than what they are, given what their roster is. I've always loved, ever since they made the Donovan Mitchell trade, I love the construction of their roster. They have a non-traditional double big lineup.
And a point to prove this year, too.
And a point to prove. And you got Mitchell and Garland in that backcourt. And, they got Strus at the swing position, which was an upgrade from last year from Karis LeVert, I believe. They got a deep bench. Orlando Magic, they have a deep bench as well. They can go about 9-10 deep, and they play some of the best defense in the league. Mm-hmm. They cannot shoot. They cannot score outside the paint. That being said, Banchero's a problem. I actually saw this really interesting stat earlier. They gave, from each point of the court, the highest field goal percentage and the lowest. And actually, Banchero was he was the lowest from 1 to 3 feet as well as 5 to 7 feet, which is very interesting because he lives at the rim and you thought it would be a little better.
Yeah.
I'll actually send it to you. It's really interesting. You can take, it's not what you would think from a lot of the places on the court, honestly. Yep. Durant was the best finisher at the rim, 93% from 1 to 3 feet, which I would not have expected. But I'm kind of leaning Orlando here. It feels like Donovan Mitchell has 1 foot out the door. Yes, like you said, he's got a point to prove, and he's going to be, looking to put some good tape out there from the series. But I'm going to lean Magic in 6. I do think they're deep. I do think those home games are going to be an incredible atmosphere. I think it's going to be lit in the Amway Center, or at least that's what it used to be, the Amway Center. So I think it's going to be crazy home games for Orlando. Cleveland's just such a weird team. You don't really know what Cleveland's showing up. They did a disgusting tank job just to get into this position, so they wanted to face Orlando. So maybe that will give Orlando some extra motivation.
Yeah.
I normally would lead the Cavs just given their experience, but this whole Donovan Mitchell thing, I really don't know. Is he gonna walk through the games? I don't think so. He's a dog, but you just never know what's really going on. And I just do think the Magic are a little underrated, but they can't shoot. But as I'm saying that, Keenan, I'm going to switch. I'm going to flop, and I don't love it. Actually, no, fuck that. Give me the Magic. We'll stay with the Magic.
Magic in 7?
Or
6?
Magic in 6. 6.
Okay.
That's who I'm rooting for. The Cavs should take care of business, though. Just from the fact they do have shooters with Strus, Garland, and Mitchell. That should be enough to overtake it. But the size and length of the Magic, that can combat it.
And last but not least, we got Boston playing either the Heat or the Bulls. I do think the Heat still managed to pull out the game against the Bulls regardless. Very fortunate for the Celtics that they don't have Jimmy Butler, because even if you don't win the series, I think they could drag that out to a very tough 6, which is always tough in the first round. But with Jimmy Butler either being very hampered or out, I've got the Boston Celtics in 5 over the Heat. There's not really much else to say. You've got the well-oiled Boston Celtic machine who is ready to get back to the finals and try to right the wrong of a couple years back.
I do want to give a shout out to Jamal Mosley, Magic head coach, because I feel like we should have mentioned him in Coach of the Year as well. So I just wanted to recognize him real quick. Celtics, I agree with you. I think the Heat win the play-in game tomorrow. If it's the Bulls, I weirdly think they actually put up a better fight than the Heat against the Celtics, just because they've given the Celtics problems this year. So I would have, if it's the Bulls, I will have the Celtics in 5, a very competitive 5. And if it's the Jimmy Butler-less Heat, I'll also go 5. I was going to pick a sweep, but Spoelstra will find a way. And the Celtics will take their foot off the gas maybe for a little bit, but I see it either being a sweep or 5 games.
Okay. So do you want to go through the rest of this sit bracket, or do you want to
Let's
hold
go conference
off?
finals.
Conference finals? Okay.
Let's go conference finals. We've been going pretty long. I'll say this. In the West, it's going to be Denver versus... Damn, because that second round matchup, who would it fall from that Mavs?
So I'll just quickly
Clippers
run through
would
your
face-
bracket. So you have the Thunder Clippers in the second round, and then you have the Nuggets facing the
And then
Suns.
that would okay. So I will have the Nuggets advancing in 7 games over the Suns. And then whoever wins that Clippers-Mavs matchup, I obviously have the Clippers, but in general, whoever wins Clippers-Mavs is going to the conference finals. So I'll have the Clippers versus the Nuggets. We'll go 7 games in the Western Conference. I got the Nuggets winning that game ultimately, in that series ultimately. And they will be facing either the Celtics or the Sixers. Because, again, I think whoever wins that 2-7 matchup, whether it's the Knicks or the Sixers, I think whoever wins that's going to the conference finals. I picked the Sixers, so we'll go Celtics versus Sixers in the Eastern Conference Finals. I would have the Celtics in 6, so my finals matchup would be the same as my preseason, Celtics versus the Nuggets. How about you?
So I have in the second round, I have the same Nuggets over the Suns. I'd probably have that in 6. And then I would have Mavs over the Thunder. That would be in 6 as well. And then I would have a 6-game series, Nuggets over the Mavs to get to the NBA Finals. And then in the East, I would have the 76ers beating the Bucks in 6, if not probably 7. I think Giannis is hampered, but I also think that if Embiid's still getting healthier and getting better in shape, they'll be able to advance. Celtics over the Cavs in probably 5, honestly. 5, maybe 6. Cavs could take them to 6, but maybe 5. The Celtics just match up with the Cavs perfectly in everything that they want to do. And then I think it'd be a tough 6-game series against the 76ers, but the Celtics win, and I have it. I thought Bucks Nuggets in the finals, but it's going to be Celtics Nuggets in the finals, which I placed a bet on this a while ago, and back to Nuggets versus Celtics, which we had a conversation about a while ago. Kyle, do you want to give your NBA champion now, or how you feeling?
I do want to say if it's Luka versus Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets versus the Mavs in the Western Conference Finals, I think they would bring out the best in each other because they seem to be like besties. And they already are 2 players who put up the most ridiculous stat lines in the league. You couple that with them like bringing the best out of each other, we might see some like just mind-blowing stat lines in that series.
I think it'd be really cool to have Embiid versus Jokic, honestly, to have that so for Jokic to try to take back that best big man in the league. I think that'd be kind of cool, but
that would be great if we got Sixers Nuggets.
Because I think when you take those teams, I think the Nuggets roster is just a little bit more they're more seasoned, so I think I would edge the roster a little bit. But when you take it away, Tyrese Maxey, Jamal Murray, that's a matchup. Then obviously you've got Aaron Gordon, you've got Michael Porter Jr., and on the other side you got Kelly Oubre, you've got Buddy Hield, Kyle Lowry, Nick Batum, you got Christian Braun. Obviously they just won a championship last year. I think that could actually be a pretty cool matchup. But I think that the 2 best teams in the league are the Nuggets and the Celtics. I think they see each other. And do you want me to go or do you want to go?
I'll go.
Okay.
I'll go. I'm actually having a tough time with this. I think the Celtics are the better team. I actually thought I picked the Nuggets in the preseason. Turns out I picked the Celtics. This is exactly my matchup, and I picked the Celtics to win it all. I don't remember if it was 6 or 7. I think it would be 7 this year. Look, my literal only issue with the Celtics, the problem they have not fixed, is they can just still get stupid in crunch time. They can still just pull off just dumb mistakes in crunch time, which is where the Nuggets excel. That being said, the Nuggets haven't looked as good as they normally do in crunch time. Granted, that was in the regular season. Postseason is a different animal. Both of these teams have been to the finals before. Obviously, the Nuggets winning last year. Obviously, the Celtics been there in 22. So it would be a true heavyweight matchup. I don't think Celtics aren't a team where they're just going to like fold. You know what I mean? They might beat themselves, but they're not going to fold. They're always going to compete. Jalen's look great. Tatum's obviously been consistent the entire season. Derek White and Drew Holiday, that's exactly the two guards you want to go up against someone like Jamal Murray. You can throw Drew Holiday on a Michael Porter Jr. if he gets cooking too. So I do think, just stylistically, I would edge the Celtics. I would favor the Celtics. I think the Celtics will be favored by the books. That might not matter, though, because Jokic is the best player on the planet, and he does so much for their team. So it really comes down to what version of Jamal Murray are you getting? What version of Michael Porter Jr. are you getting? Because if you're really only getting 2 out of the 3, which, by the way, major props to Michael Porter Jr. because he's had a really great second half of the season, I think. I think it's going unheralded. I think he's upped his game quite a bit. He still doesn't love to pass the ball at all, but he is scoring the ball efficiently, and he's scoring the ball at a higher clip. But I would edge Celtics in 7, Keenan. That's not a completely confident pick because guess what? Like I said, the way they'd lose it is by throwing up on themselves in the fourth quarter. They play so together for 46 minutes, and it seems like the last 2 minutes it turns into, all right, I'm going to shoot a step back 3. All right, Jaylen Brown's turn to shoot a step back 3 or a pull-up mid-range jump shot. And that's never, ever, ever going to beat the Nuggets, who can get stops, by the way. They can absolutely get stops in the fourth. The Celtics can play and run their offense all the way through. That's going to be incredibly tough for the Nuggets to stop. I'd even mentioned Kristaps Porzingis, who is already going to be a matchup problem for just about anybody with the firepower that the Celtics have. So just the way the rosters are constructed, I would edge the Celtics. That's not a confident pick, but I do like their roster better, and I don't like the lack of depth that the Nuggets have. I don't think they ever – Duke did allude to that. Shouts to Duke. Duke did allude to that Bruce Brown, them losing him. That could be a problem. And it very well could be, especially if you do have a terrible Michael Porter Jr. game. I guess Christian Brown, he's filled that role pretty well, I will say, at Bruce Brown. But it seems like they're at least one player short. But it would be just like the Nuggets to have that one player show up in the postseason. So,
and it could be Reggie Jackson, who is a veteran who's played in big spots before. So,
but I don't see a Reggie Jackson, Jamal Murray backcourt being a good recipe for them. You know what I mean?
I just more so meant like in like a game or spot kind of thing. Like, yeah, like I'm more so just like hey, that kind of guy.
Definitely for that. He probably will have a couple games. He became a great player for the Clippers randomly a couple years ago, where he looked like a go-to scorer. Like, he definitely has the ability to do it and probably will do it. But I wonder who that guy's going to be. You're right. Maybe it could be Reggie. Maybe all they need is 6 and Reggie's that guy. You could be right about that. I'm just worried about the Murray health just because he seems to be flaring up at the wrong time. But he is a big-time postseason performer as well. So go ahead.
Obviously, this is contingent on Jamal Murray. I mean, all of this is all contingent on health. Like, if anyone's first or second best player goes down, then that changes the entirety of the conversation. I have Nuggets in 7, and it comes down to I trust Jokic in that Nuggets offense and defense a little bit more late game than I do the Celtics. I think you'll naturally get like the Celtics who win a game by 15-20, Nuggets win a game by 15-20. You always have that throughout a series. But it's going to come down to, say, a game 4 in Boston or maybe a game 5 in Denver. Or, sorry, other way around. Game 4 in Boston, or game 4 in Denver, game 5 in Boston, where It's going to be late game plays, and the Celtics offense does tend to get stagnant late, and Denver's doesn't, and that's because Jokic is the best guaranteed bucket in the entire league. He's going to get himself a good shot, or he's going to give whomever else a good shot. So I lean the Nuggets and
clutch player of the year.
Yeah, it's fair. And I told you, as I said to you, I went by the letter of the law. I don't disagree with what you're saying whatsoever.
I'm not bringing up an argument. I'm saying that's why he's my clutch player of the year.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, yeah, I don't even disagree with you one bit. I understand completely. He's going to get you a good possession every possession. I lean the Nuggets in 7 over the Celtics. Nuggets go back to back, and Jokic puts himself into high-end all-time territory if he wins the 3rd MVP and another championship. But yeah.
Well, we agreed entirely too much in this episode, which can lead to some boringness, but I want to hear your 5 bold predictions for the NBA playoffs.
All right. You want me to rattle through them real quick?
Yeah, 1 through 5. Or we can go back and forth, whichever way.
I'm going to rattle through my 5 real quick. So,
the real star of the show here, the bold predictions.
Jokic 30-point triple-double. Kind of irregular. 100% shooting from the floor on at least 12 shots.
In a game? This is one game. So he's going to go perfect from the field.
He's going to go a perfect 30-point triple-double.
That would be insane.
Perfect 30-point triple-double.
Can I? You know what, Keenan? Let me counter you because I have
that.
Actually, no. Go ahead. We'll keep it the same way. Go ahead.
Luka 50, Kyrie 40 in a game. They're gonna combine for 90 points at least.
90 combined points. Okay, all right.
They're gonna combine for 90 because Luka on these 50-point games can get you 16 assists, and those are gonna go to Kyrie's gonna go. Kyrie's already been a part of dual 40s in the finals. What's 9 more points? You're gonna get a 20-point, 20-assist game from LeBron. He's going to get himself back. We saw him close to it at 28 and 17 against the Pelicans. He's going to get you a 20-20 game here in the first round of the playoffs against the Nuggets.
I like these. These are good, bold predictions. I can picture them.
The 70, what's up?
Go ahead. No, I was going to say maybe not the triple-double with a 100% field goal percentage. That one seems crazy. That's the boldest one.
Then we got the Sixers are going to win an important game. I don't know exactly which game, with Joel Embiid playing 35-plus minutes, scoring less than 10.
Okay, all right. So playoff Embiid shows up, but the Sixers.
It's going to be playoff Embiid, so it's going to be Batum, Buddy Hield, Tyrese Maxey. All of those guys are going to come along.
That was almost a play-in game. You almost called it with a play-in game.
They tried. That's 4. And then I was working on the 5 as we were going through. And you know what? Oh, God. Yeah, I got it. Brunson scores 52 in the Garden against the 76ers. He has an all-time classic in the Garden.
They might have the first court storming since the 80s if that happens.
All-time classic game from Brunson.
That's versus Philly, obviously. Yeah,
against Philly.
Round 1, so yeah. What game?
Game 5.
Game 4. A do or die game 5 wins.
In a loss.
OT?
Game 5, 52 and no OT. No OT. Wow. 52 and a loss. Embiid's going to come with like a 30-point game max. It's going to be a full team Sixers effort. And it's going to be like a 106 to like 104 kind of game. And Brunson's going to score half his team's points. So there they are.
Those are going to be, Keenan, those are tough to top. I will say, we started off in the same place though. You said Luka Doncic. I call him Luka Jordan.
Yep.
For this reason, Keenan, he's going to average 40 in the first round. Can you give me his regular season averages again?
34, 9, and 9.8.
34 points. How many minutes?
35. Actually, never mind. 37 and a half.
Oh, he did play 37 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So let's assume he plays about 43 minutes. That's good for 6 more points. So 40 points for Luka. Couple that with Keenan on Sunday. Luka's putting up 55 in that game 1. He's making it known. So that's my second bowl prediction. So we got Luka averaging 40 against the Clips.
Game 3 was it against the Suns in the finals?
He's putting up a double nickel in the house that he built. He might as well have built. I mean, even though it's the Staples Center, but I mean, he might as well have a stake in the Clippers side of the crypt. We're really going to call it Staples. Fuck the crypt. But Keenan, you said that, push comes to shove in a game 7 or a game 6, that Jokic just might pull something out of his ass. Like he just might have a crazy game.
Mm-hmm.
That game could be this one that I'm talking about here. I think Jokic could have a 40, 20, and 20 game. A 40, 20, 20. That would be 80 total, depending on how these all square up. Could be 80 plus. Could be even in the 90s.
That would, if that was in a game 7, that'd legitimately be the best game of all time. Not a question.
This was originally a 40, 20, 15. And then I'm like, I feel like I said that last year. Let's just go to 20. So 40, 20, and 20. These last two are kind of boring. I'm kind of envious because you had some really good ones. But we'll say this is in a big game. I guess you could say every playoff game is a big game, but some hold higher stakes. I got a Kristaps Porzingis 8 3-pointer game.
Ooh.
So we'll see how that shakes out. He's going to catch fire in one of these games, apparently, and just put whatever team they're facing to bed. And then, Keenan, because we oppose each other on the Clippers and Mavs series, I got Russell Westbrook securing a win for the Clippers with a triple-double. He's turning the clock back. He's doing what Westbrook does. He's doing a triple-double. He's going to secure the win. Clips over the Mavs. Who knows? Maybe Luka, maybe he'll have 75 that game. I don't know. Luka's known to do things like that. So Luka might have 62 with 12 and 13. Who knows? We don't know what Luka's going to do. And you know what? Still, it doesn't matter because the Clippers are just going to overcome it with Kawhi, with Paul George, but most importantly with Russell Westbrook, triple-double. So
with Bill Russell's triple-double.
With Bill Russell's triple-double. So cannot wait for this series. Cannot wait for the playoffs. Saturday and Sunday is going to be action-packed. Obviously, we got the games tomorrow. Can't wait for that. Which games first? Must be the Bulls game first, obviously.
I think so, yeah.
Right? Bulls. And that's in Miami? Yes, it should be.
Yeah, it's in Miami. The second game's in New Orleans.
That's going to be an ugly game. And then so we each have Heat and then Kings tomorrow, or you going Pels?
No, Heat Kings.
Well, listen, this was the Warner Brothers podcast. This was our NBA 2024 playoff predictions show. Always one that we're looking forward to, as well as the listeners. So Merry Christmas to y'all. Christmas came a little early this year, I guess. But Keenan, I can't wait. Any general predictions for this weekend aside of the ones we gave?
There's going to be a crazy game winner somewhere.
Calling a game winner.
I don't mean just like a regular layup kind of game winner. I mean like a crossover step back over somebody as time expires. It'll be a crazy game winner over the weekend. Don't know who, don't know what.
You said it, and I envisioned Jalen Brunson, so maybe it'll be that. Maybe it'll be Brunson over the Sixers. If I could give one prediction for the weekend, well, it's return to 90s ball with the refs, so maybe we get an actual somewhat of a skirmish, not the little NBA skirmishes we're used to. Maybe we get a throwback, little shove, little forearm shiver, little something to where Adam Silver has to step in and give a 1 or 2 game suspension. So I'll say that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I like it.
I'm not gonna pinpoint it to a series, but as I was saying it, I for some reason also envisioned the same series I gave you. So Knicks Sixers. So maybe we'll get a skirmish in Knicks Sixers. I don't know. Maybe it'll come tomorrow in the playing games.
Maybe Knicks Sixers will have a skirmish throughout the game. Kelly Oubre will get kicked out of the game, and then Jalen Brunson will hit a game winner, and then everybody will erupt and explode.
be one of those. Maybe so. On his way to a 62-point game or whatever it was, 52-point game. Maybe that's what it'll be. Listen, this was the Warner Brothers podcast. We will be back next week. Enjoy the games this weekend. Follow us on TikTok. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on YouTube. We'll be back chopping it up about the games. I think we got some draft coverage next week because we got the NFL draft coming up. Much more on the way. Sounds like a boring music weekend. I checked the releases. Nothing really of note. Nas and DJ Premier song coming out, though. That's cool. Turning back the hands of time. So, yeah. But we will be back. This was the Warner Brothers podcast. Enjoy.
Oh, she makes me feel like a man.